Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, we invite you to listen to part 6 of the series. Chapter 71, Chapter 71, Chapter 71, Cotton Bumper Harvest. Thanks for the children's monthly tickets, add one more chapter, 1. Chapter 71, Chapter 71, Cotton Bumper Harvest. Thanks for the children's monthly tickets, add one more chapter, 1. This afternoon, after school had let out, Lady Wen said that there was no need to go to school in the afternoon, so Bao and her 2 younger brothers went with their mother to the south slope to pick cotton. All the cotton planted on the south slope had completely bloomed and was ready for harvest. The entire Jiang family and some villagers were helping pick cotton in the fields, and most of it was already picked. By the time Bao and her mother arrived, the white cotton that had been picked was piled up on the bluestone slabs in the courtyard, forming 3 large heaps. Oh, so this is cotton. Chen Xuanjing and the clan leader, having nothing better to do, strolled over to the Jiang family's new house on the south slope. Seeing a yard full of white cotton, they couldn't help but grab a handful to examine. It's really soft. The clan leader couldn't get enough of the fine, soft cotton. He asked Jiang Sanlang, "Sanlang, are you selling this cotton?" Jiang Sanlang nodded. "We can sell what's left after keeping some for our own use, but we can't sell all of it." His daughter said the cotton could be spun into thread and woven into cloth, so he was planning to first spin some thread at home to try making cotton cloth. Spinning cotton into thread is way easier than using rami or kudzu fibers. As long as you're careful when harvesting and keep it away from leaves and grass, and then remove the cotton seeds, you can directly start spinning. It's not like rami or kudzu, which need to be soaked, stripped, pounded, and drawn out into threads, truly an exhausting task. This year, the Jiang family didn't plant much rami and didn't even bother to harvest the kudzu on North Mountain. Chen Sanyo asked, "Sanlang, where did you find these seeds?" "My daughter Bao bought them from a salesman, who said they were foreign seeds." Jiang Sanlang didn't conceal the truth. His daughter did indeed buy a lot of seeds from the salesman, but as for where she got them from later on, he had no idea. The clan leader looked at Bao, smiling. "Your Bao is indeed very lucky. In my 60 years, I've never seen a child more blessed than her. No one could match her luck." Other people could easily buy cotton seeds from a salesman, seeds that he had never seen in his life. All the useless things in his house should really be tossed into a dung pit to make compost. Jiang Sanlang simply smiled, not saying anything. With this 4-acre field of cotton, he estimated he would harvest more than 2,000 caddies of cotton. After removing the seeds, he might have 1,000 caddies of raw cotton. 1,000 caddies of raw cotton, once dried and fluffed, could be used to create 2 new cotton outfits for everyone in his household and more than enough cotton quilts. The items needed to process the cotton were also suggested by his daughter. She even drew a long bow for fluffing the cotton and explained that it could be used to make the raw cotton into fluffy fillings. Apparently, the salesman had told all these to his daughter. "Sanlang, are you selling these cotton seeds?" Chen Sanyo asked. "Can you sell some to my family for planting?" Jiang Sanlang scratched his head, hesitating. He was not ready to sell all the cotton seeds yet. Because he would need seeds for the dry areas on the south slope belonged to his eldest and second brother, as well as his parents, not to mention he himself definitely wanted to plant more than 10 acres next year. These seeds might not even be enough. Seeing Jiang Sanlang's dilemma, Chen Sanyo said, "Sanlang, I don't need much, just enough for planting 2 acres. Upon hearing this, the clan leader immediately craned his neck towards them. "Sanlang, my family will also do with seeds for 2 acres. My old cold leg can't stand the cold." Someone among the villagers laughed and said, "Old man Chen, you've had that cold leg for how many years now, but we've never heard you complain about the cold when there was no cotton." The clan leader shot a glare at him, his beard bristling in annoyance. "You little brat, always talking too much." The group burst into laughter, saying, "We've already talked to Jiang Sanlang about buying cotton seeds. If you want some, you'll have to follow the rules and get in line." Jiang Sanlang replied with a somewhat helpless smile. These 5 people who came to help him, he had already agreed to sell them 20 caddies of cotton seeds each, which would be 100 caddies in total. Now the clan leader in the village had also wanted to buy, and it wouldn't be right for him to refuse. As such, he would have to part with 40 more caddies. He was planning to plant 10 acres of cotton next year, and by his calculations, 1 acre required 10 caddies of seeds, which would be 100 caddies. His oldest and second brothers, as well as his parents, all wanted to plant 10 acres each, which would need 300 caddies of seeds. He estimated that he would have about 400 to 500 caddies of cotton seeds left. These seeds were rare items. He wouldn't even consider selling them to people from outside the village for less than a tael of silver per jean. Of course, this was not something to tell the clan leader. After picking the cotton, the most exhausting task was pulling out the cotton stalks. These stalks were like small trees. They had to be uprooted so the next step of plowing the field could be done. Fortunately, Jiang Sanlang was popular now, and there were many people coming to help. A random shout in the village would bring 20 or 30 young men, and in just one day, they would completely uproot the cotton stalks in the 4 mu of cotton field. Ing Bao stayed the night at South Slope with his 2 younger brothers and his parents and was brought back to the village the next day. As soon as she got home, Ernie ran over and told Ing Bao a shocking piece of news about Chen Zhao's family. "You don't know, Chen Zhao's eldest sister jumped into the river yesterday," Ernie said with a keen interest. Ing Bao was taken aback. "Chen Wan jumped into the river. What happened then?" she asked. "Is she all right?" How to say, her feeling toward Chen Wan was like a familiar stranger. In fact, the offspring of the Han family hardly had any affection for each other and did not have the usual sisterly love that ordinary families do. They were mostly indifferent. They would neither sympathize nor help each other. This included herself too. Of course, she felt no affection for her sisters, but she loved her twin brothers to the core. She thought back to her previous life in the Chen family, when she suffered so much to the point of nearly dying, but they wouldn't even look at her. By then, Chen Wan was already in her teens, and Chen Zhao was only 2 years younger than her eldest sister. However, ever since the Han family had their son, Chen Su, her 2 sisters liked him very much, especially in front of the Han family. They were almost flattering their younger brother. In her previous life, when she had just arrived at the Chen family, she had tried to treat them as if they were her own sisters. When her eldest sister was being hit by the Han family, she would pity and feel sorry for her, blocking her and pushing her to run away. As a result, she herself was hit by the Han family, locked up in a chicken cage without food at night. Ing Bao actually thought that her eldest sister would care for her a bit, at least give her some food. As the Chen family was not poor, they had hundreds of acres of fields, most of which they leased to other families to farm, so there was never a shortage of food at home. Sometimes they ate better than the Jiang family does now. Even though Chen Wan often got beaten, she never had her food or clothing deducted. In the end, nothing happened. The next day, Chen Wan didn't even ask her a question, let alone sneak her out. "I heard she was saved." Ernie blinked her eyes. It was a passing fisherman who saved her. A fisherman? Could it be the fisherman Chen Wan later married? Chen Wan later married a fisherman who was 6 or 7 years older than her, and was said to be doing well. When people saved her, she had no clothes left. She was lying naked on the ground, and the fisherman was patting her stomach to get the water out. Ernie was excited as she spoke. "Now, Chen Zhao's eldest sister has been seen naked by all the people in the village. How is she going to explain herself to her future mother-in-law?" "Ing Bao, Ernie, you're not even 9 years old yet. How do you know so much?" Ernie snorted. Who doesn't know this? Village children matured early. Some were already engaged to be married and began the ritual greetings at 8 or 9 years old. During the New Year and other holidays, the in-laws would send gifts, and they would always give the girl a length of red cloth to make clothes. So all the girls in the village would come to see the betrothed boys, staring at them until they lowered their heads to their chests. Chapter 72, Chapter 72, Chapter 72, Father is really cunning. Chapter 72, Chapter 72, Father is really cunning. The incident of the second daughter of the Chen family jumping into the river didn't cause much turmoil, and the villagers soon forgot about it. Now, what the people of West Village are most concerned about are the mushrooms from East Village, as well as the bamboo sheds they've built. So, the villagers of West Village came to visit East Village in small groups, asking questions from time to time. But the villagers from East Village, being cunning now, didn't want to pay much attention to the people from West Village. They often brushed them off with a few words, excusing that they were too busy to answer, essentially driving them away. But the people from West Village weren't easily discouraged, trying various ways to sneak a peek. The more audacious ones even ran to the Jiang family to learn from them, but ended up being turned away at the door. One day, a large mule cart drove into the village, followed by a few servants riding donkeys. After the coachman inquired about the residence of Jiang Sanlang, he drove the cart straight to his home. "Is Jiang Sanlang home?" Zhou Mao jumped down from the mule cart and called out in front of the bamboo fence gate. Jiang Sanlang happened to be at home picking cotton seeds, so he rushed out to answer the door upon hearing the sound. "Oh! It's Steward Zhou, what a rare guest." Jiang Sanlang saluted Zhou Mao with a clenched fist and invited him and his entourage into the house, offering them seats. Chun Yang quickly got up to boil some tea in the kitchen. Zhou Mao glanced around Jiang Sanlang's house but didn't comment, simply lifting his robe and sitting down on a broken stool. Rolling up his sleeves, he chuckled, "Your golden mushrooms have been sun-dried, right?" "Of course." Jiang Sanlang also smiled, "Steward Zhou, your timing is perfect. We've got everything ready. As long as he goes out and calls for them, the villagers are likely to bring the golden mushrooms and snow mushrooms. What about the premium ones? How many did you collect this time?" Zhou Mao mainly came for the premium ones this time, which were already selling for 50 taels of silver per tael in the prefecture city, even more valuable than century-old ginseng. This is still due to the fact that not many people know about it. If those aristocratic families knew, their trading firm would be swarmed with servants and the price would surely skyrocket. Of course, he wouldn't let the Jiang family know about these matters. "We've produced 12 caddies of premium ones," said Jiang Sanlang. Out of these 12, 5 caddies were from his own home, 3 each from his elder brother and second brother, and 2 from his father. The ones planted by his daughter Ingbao weren't included in this. Only 12 caddies. That was too little. Zhou Mao was somewhat disappointed. "Bring them here for me to see." "Well, 12 caddies it is, at least it's better than none." Alas, going back, there's not even enough for a few distinguished guests to split. The head of the trading firm alone would reserve 3 caddies, not to mention other distinguished guests. They were all waiting for him to bring back the premium golden mushrooms. Jiang Sanlang carried 2 big baskets out of the house and placed them in front of Zhou Mao. Zhou Mao picked them up and sniffed at them one by one, fearing that Jiang Sanlang might have mixed in some fakes. Jiang Sanlang didn't mind him and simply watched quietly on the side. Ingbao also came out of the house, followed closely by the 2 twins. After checking the premium mushrooms, Zhou Mao instructed his clerk to weigh them. After finishing weighing the premium golden mushrooms, Zhou Mao asked again, "Don't you also have premium snow mushrooms? Why didn't you bring them out?" Jiang Sanlang chuckled, "Actually, the premium snow mushrooms have already been reserved by others." "What?" Zhou Mao was displeased. "I say, brother Jiang, this isn't fair. We agreed that I would come and pick them up, not even needing you to make the trip, and now you've reserved the premium snow mushrooms for others." Jiang Sanlang laughed, "But Steward Zhou never said we couldn't sell to others. Besides, we didn't make a formal contract. Of course, we'd sell to whoever offers the highest price." Zhou Mao was so angry, he wanted to curse Jiang Sanlang but didn't dare to. He only snorted and asked, "How much did they offer?" Jiang Sanlang didn't inflate the price too much, saying, "They gave 5 taels of silver for 1 caddy of premium snow mushrooms." "What?" Zhou Mao gritted his teeth, and eventually cursed, You swindler, you dare cheat me." Jiang Sanlang calmly said, "They did give that much. Steward Zhou, you may think it's expensive, but others don't." Zhou Mao, frustrated, spun around on the spot. Finally, he gritted his teeth, "Fine. I'll also give 5 taels. Get the schwer out quickly and remember they should be premium quality. If there's even one fake piece, you'll be in for it." Jiang Sanlang then went back into the house and fetched 2 baskets of schwer. "There are 8 jin in total here. I can only give you half, the other half has to be reserved for the other customer." Upon hearing this, Zhou Mao instantly rushed over, grabbed the 2 baskets and left, muttering, "Keep dreaming." He then ordered the young assistant to weigh the mushrooms quickly. After they were weighed, he had them carried to the mule cart and told one of his servants to keep an eye on the baskets. Ingbao, observing her father's cunningness, was completely amazed. She needed to learn more from her father. His skill in deceiving people would be very useful in the future. Next, it was time to weigh the common golden mushrooms. Jiang Sanlang had grown 500 plants, as did both Jiang Dalong and Jiang Erlang. The elder Jiang had grown 200, and so had Jiang Cheng. Even Danny and Ernie each had grown 100 plants. In the future, they're likely going to keep this quantity. The golden mushrooms weigh 52 Jin 8 liang. The Schwer weigh 20 Jin, the young. Assistant reported. Zhou Mao took out an abacus and began calculating. In total, that's 337 taels, plus 500 coins. It was the highest sale in history, and Jiang Sanlang couldn't help but smile. Zhou Mao knew that the Jiang family didn't accept silver notes. This time, he had brought along plenty of silver ingots, some of which were large 20-tael ingots. He had more than enough to pay for this. After moving the golden mushrooms and Schwer onto the cart, Zhou Mao went to inspect Jiang Sanlang's bamboo shed and pet the big deer in the yard. Surprised, he asked, "Brother Jiang, are you selling this big deer?" "No, this is my daughter's deer. No amount of money can buy it." Zhou Mao shook his head regretfully and was about to leave when Jiang Sanlang said, "Please wait, Steward Zhou. There are more golden mushrooms and Schwer in our village that haven't been moved over." Zhou Mao blinked, about to come up with a cunning plan, but Jiang Sanlang quickly said, "They also went to the trade office last time and know the purchase price." Zhou Mao sighed, not entirely giving up. He asked, "Are there any premium ones?" "No. Only our family has premium. It's not easy to care for them, others can't grow it." Jiang Sanlang mercilessly crushed his hopes. "Oh." Zhou Mao felt disappointed, and waved his hand. "Well, then tell them to hurry up and bring them over. Time is money." At this point, Ing Bao had already run out to call for the lady next door, Wang Er's grandmother, and asked Wang Er's son to notify other families. Soon, Jiang Sanlang's house was bustling with activity. Villagers flocked to bring their own golden mushrooms and Schwer. Ing Bao sat on the fence of the deer pen with her two younger brothers, dangling their legs and watching the streams of people. Among the group of men, a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law pair stood out. The older woman was around 50 years old, the younger one was in her 20s. They looked delicate and attractive, with thin brows and bright eyes. Their fragile appearance showed they were easy to bully. This was Chen, the clan leader's second wife, Mrs. Tang, and her young daughter-in-law, Mrs. Xiao. Mrs. Tang was holding a small baby boy, about 2 or 3 years old, just a bit older than Ing Bao's younger brothers. He had a shaved head with tufts of hair in 3 places and thin brow lines, looking a lot like his mother Mrs. Xiao. Mrs. Xiao was carrying a large bamboo basket, filled with around 100 dried golden mushrooms. Mrs. Tang walked over to Ing Bao, carrying her grandson, and took several pieces of hard candy out of her pocket to put in Ing Bao's hand, and also gave 2 each to the twins. She smiled and said, "These are made by grandmother, they are very sweet." Ing Bao thanked her. "Thank you, Grandma Tang." The 2 brothers also learned to say, "Thank you, Grandma Tang." Mrs. Tang patted Ing Bao on the head, smiled and said, "Next time, Bao Bao, bring your brothers to Grandma's house, I will make a lot more delicious food." Ing Bao nodded, "Okay." Mrs. Tang's smile widened. She introduced her grandson to Ing Bao. "His name is Chen Bozhong, his nickname is Yao Yao. Yao Yao, say hello to Sister Ing Bao." Yao Yao blinked his small, almond-shaped eyes and obediently said, "Sister Ing Bao." Ing Bao couldn't help but touch his tufted hair and responded with a small laugh. Xiaojie and Dao became jealous, tugging on their sister's arm from both sides, not letting her touch any other kids. Chapter 73, Chapter 73, Chapter 73, Stealing the Child Again. Chapter 73, Chapter 73, Stealing the Child Again. After Xiao family sold the golden earrings, she showed the silver coins to her mother-in-law. "I sold them for 7.5 taels. Tang family was overjoyed and laughed. "Store the money well when you get back. It's your private stash for the future. Don't spend it unnecessarily. After all, public funds are used for food and clothing, so don't lend it to anyone. Yao Yao will need money when she grows up." "I understand, mother." The Xiao wife gave Ing Bao a smile, took back her son from her mother-in-law's arms, and went home with him. Ing Bao watched the mother and son leave, feeling inexplicably sorry for them. Because next year, Tang's son will return from the battlefield with a broken leg and die not long after. Grandmother Tang, overcome with grief, will also pass away within a few months, leaving this mother and son in the Chen family. The clan leader of Chen had prestige outside, but wasn't always fair within his own home. After his second wife passed away, his daughter-in-law was widowed, so he didn't intervene much in the affairs of the fourth house. Hence, the Xiao wife and her son, living under the rule of the first wife, didn't have a good life. After that big flood, Ing Bao never saw them again. Ing Bao hopped off the railings, let her two younger brothers down, and went for a walk outside with Xiaolu. Yu Yu nudged Ing Bao's with its head, gesturing for her to climb on. "There are 3 of us, you can't carry us all." Ing Bao patted its neck and led it outside. The active Xiaojie and Xiaowu were like wild horses let off the reins once they got outside, even dogs couldn't catch up with them. "Slow down. Don't run too far, or I won't bring you out to play next time." Ing Bao had no choice but to threaten them. As expected, the twins obediently ran back. "You are Ing Bao, aren't you?" An old woman popped out from behind the haystack and squinted with a smile. Ing Bao turned to look and was startled. So, Chen Chomping's mother had come here at some point. And the Han family's Han Juniang was also with her. Ing Bao looked around and seeing no one paying attention, called her 2 younger brothers to her side and asked guardedly, "Are you here to kidnap children?" Chen from the Feng family stiffened, quickly shaking her hand. No, I am," she thought for a moment, struggling to find the right words to introduce herself. Han from the Han family stepped forward, a forced smile on her face. "Ing Bao, I am your biological mother, and she is your grandmother." Before she could finish, Ing Bao screamed loudly, "Dad! Mom! Someone's kidnapping children!" Chen from Feng family was shocked and Han family was also panicked. They hurriedly tried to cover Ing Bao's mouth. The sight of someone bullying their sister incensed the twin boys, who promptly rushed to attack them, crying out, "Bad people! Bad people!" Jiang Erlang dashed out of the house ahead of others, followed by a crowd of villagers. "What's happening?" Jiang Erlang rushed forward, protectively hiding his daughter and son within his embrace, and yelled in anger, again from the west village. "You can't stand us east villagers having a good life, can you? Come with me to Li Jing's place, let's sort this out properly." The previous incident of Chen Ergu's daughter-in-law kidnapping children and throwing them into the river had just taken place. That woman was eventually sentenced to exile, whether she was dead or alive no one knew. Now, Chen Ergu's relatives, Chen Laoshuan's old wife and second daughter-in-law were here. They were definitely hitting out at him, Jiang Erlang. "Yes. Bring them to Li Jing's place. This is outrageous. I think the people of West Village have all gone mad, one after another. How come they like to kidnap children so much?" "Exactly, if Li Jing dares to tolerate them this time, we will take this to the county government and seek justice. Tie them up. Attempting to kidnap even in our village, who will dare to let their children go out in the future?" The villagers were indignant and critical, a few even rushed over to kick Feng and Han violently. Chen from Feng family was almost paralyzed with fear and kept protesting. "No, I didn't mean to kidnap the child, we are." Jiang Erlang gave her no chance to explain, handed his children to Chunyang, and with a few villagers, tied up Chen from the Feng family and Han. They gagged their mouths with old cloth and began to drag them away. Jiang Dailang, Jiang Erlang, and Old Man Jiang also wanted to follow, but Jiang Erlang stopped them, asking them to go back and look after Zhou Mao and the others. In such a manner, a large group of people from East Village headed off to town, hunting down Sun Liqing. Sun Liqing was fretting about collecting the remaining tax silver, when he was confronted with a child theft case. Upon inquiry, it turned out to be from the West Village again. "Darn it. Summon the village chief of West Village. And also bring over the heads of the households of these 2 women." He was curious to see if this was some sort of uprising. So, Chen Chongqing arrived, Chen Sanyo too, along with Chen Laozuan, the husband of the Feng family's Chen. Upon seeing her husband, Chen Feng quickly called out, "Father! Come quickly and save me, oh my arm, it's practically broken." Chen Laozuan looked grim and said to Sun Liqing, "It's a misunderstanding by Jiang Sanlang. How could my wife steal a child?" A villager angrily retorted, "If not for child theft, what were you doing in East Village? And you strangled Ing Bao, were you trying to murder her?" Chen Laozuan quickly looked at his wife, asking what was happening. Chen Feng repeatedly shook her head. I didn't strangle her. I just wanted her to stop shouting. Oh, finally speaking the truth. Jiang Sanlang sneered. Why didn't you want her to shout? You say you didn't want to steal the child, but how did her shouting at her own doorstep bother you? Feng was at a loss for words and her speech became increasingly garbled. Because she said we were flower smackers, we weren't, so naturally, we couldn't let her shout. Jiang Sanlang bowed to Li Jing. Li Jing, you heard it, my daughter thinks they are flower smackers. Li Jing sternly said, in that case, we will bring them to the authorities first thing in the morning. Chen Laozuan was taken aback and began to explain hastily, that's not how it is, Jiang Sanlang, you misunderstood. If Feng and Han were sent to the authorities, there would be no hope for their second son to take the imperial examination. From the side, Han suddenly said, Ying Bao is my biological child, we went to recognize her, not to steal her. The crowd was in an uproar. The brothers, Wang Ke and Li Dayong, were the most furious. Shameless. Failed at smacking flowers, and now claiming Ying Bao as your child. How daring of you! You crazy woman, do you have a mental problem? I think you're delusional. Jiang Sanlang sneered, how did my daughter become your biological child? Sun Liqing also chimed in, yes, Han, if you say the child is your biological child, is that enough? Everything needs evidence, understand? Before pinching herself to force a tear, Han quietly said, Li Jing, Ying Bao really is my biological child, if you don't believe me, ask everyone, isn't that child picked up by Jiang Sanlang? Chen Sanyo snorted, you're really something. Who in the village doesn't? No, Ying Bao was picked up by Sanlang, but that doesn't mean anyone can claim Ying Bao as their biological child. Hold back your dirty thoughts, do you think we don't know what you want to do? The crowd laughed, yeah, since you can't have a son, do you want to take Ying Bao back to gift you one? Everyone in the village knew that Ying Bao was the incarnation of a fairy child, and Chen Laozuan's family dared to dream of kidnapping the child from East Village. Li Dayong spat, you are really shameless. With her face turning red, Han was now shedding real tears, that's not true. Ying Bao really is my biological child. Chen Laozuan, standing to one side with a loss of face, told Li Jing, old brother son, that child is indeed from the Chen family. Even if it weren't true, it had to be now. Otherwise, he would lose his face in the village. Is the moon in the sky also yours? Jiang Sanlang sneered, everyone is claiming Ying Bao as their own, and you are already the eighth. Chen Laozuan was speechless. Sun Liqing pulled over a chair and sat down, stroking his beard and said slowly, I'll say it again, everything relies on evidence. Chen Laozuan, do you have any proof that the child is yours? Chen Laozuan was dumbfounded and turned his gaze to his wife, Chen Feng. Chen Feng blinked and turned to her daughter-in-law, Han, the child was born by you. Do you have any proof? Chapter 74, Chapter 74, Chapter 74, No evidence. Chapter 74, Chapter 74, No evidence. Han's family motherhood set her eyes down, her heart in a daze. She hadn't even looked at the child when she found out it was a girl. She had no idea what she looked like, let alone any evidence to prove it. However, she seemed to remember the midwife Wu Xishan saying something in surprise, but she couldn't remember exactly what it was. What was it? I was a bit fuzzy at the time, I can't remember. Jiang Sanlang sneered, then why don't you tell us, how did your child end up with me? Han's family. She couldn't tell the truth, even if she wasn't the one who lost the child. But to say it was her husband, that was even worse. Her husband was a scholar, his reputation was crucial, she would rather be childless than ruin his chance in the imperial examination. Seeing her daughter-in-law not saying a word, Chen Feng immediately responded, because the child was weak from birth and didn't have any strength, so you left her by the river Chuanhe? Jiang Sanlang asked coldly. Chen Feng quickly nodded, yes. We can't keep a dead child at home, can we? Then tell me, how did your child, who passed away as soon as she was born, end up with me? Jiang Sanlang asked forcefully. I threw her somewhere by the Chuanhe, I can't remember the exact location, it has been so many years. Chen Feng looked to her daughter-in-law for help, Han's family, do you know? Han's family was silent. Her husband Qin Chongping never said he threw the child by the Chuanha. He only said he left her in North Mountain. But why did Jiang Sanlang say the child was found by the Chuanha? Was he trying to confuse them? Or was the child really not hers? Regardless, the child had to be hers. Jiang Sanlang turned to Sun Liqing and said, "Liqing, Yingbao has never been weak since she was a child. If you don't believe me, you can ask my neighbors if they have ever seen her been ill or used medications." Everyone shook their heads. "We never saw Yingbao fall ill, and we never saw the Jiangs invite a doctor for the child. If my child has never been weak, how did she become Chen's child who was weak from birth and died?" Jiang Sanlang's gaze was sharp. He turned to Han's family. "Or is it because you couldn't give birth to a son, you listened to rumors, intentionally deceived and tried to steal Yingbao from us for your heir?" Han's family avoided his gaze and mumbled, "I didn't." She began to doubt her previous judgment. Maybe the girl wasn't hers after all. So what if that's the case? Also, Yingbao wasn't found by Chuanha. I picked her up from South Slope, which is miles away from Chuanha. Jiang Sanlang asserted confidently. Chen Feng and Han's family. Old Chen angrily glared at his daughter-in-law. Han's family wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Sun Liqing. "Enough, you all quiet down now." Pointing at old Chen, "You are the head of the family, you shouldn't be making a fuss with two women. I won't punish you today, but I can't tolerate this unhealthy trend. How about this, you give Jiang Sanlang 2 taels of silver as a compensation, let's end this matter right here. Otherwise, I will have to take you to the county government and let Mingfu himself preside over this fraud case." He was really fed up with the families from Shichen village. They didn't do any actual work but kept doing these unlawful things. The autumn tax collection deadline was approaching. There were still several families in West Village that hadn't paid. If he didn't issue a penalty, they would think they could get away with anything. When he looked at East Village, several households that had difficulty paying tax last year paid their taxes early. This saved him so much trouble. When Chen Feng heard about the penalty silver, she became annoyed. "Liqing, why should our family get penalized? Even if we mistook the person, the judgment shouldn't warrant this." Sun Liqing slammed on the table, "What? So how should I judge? You defame others' children again and again. Is there no law and order?" Chen Feng shrunk her neck back and kept quiet. She looked at her daughter-in-law once again with hardened eyes. What a useless thing. Without any evidence, she had the nerve to go to the Zhangs and demand the child. Now they had lost all face. In the end, old Chen had no choice but to give 2 taels of silver, otherwise Liqing would spank both his wife and daughter-in-law, as well as him. If his female family members were forced to pull down their pants and be spanked in public, he would be utterly humiliated. On the way home, unable to hold back his anger, old Chen scolded the 2 women harshly, instructing them to keep their mouths shut and not tell his second son about the incident, as he didn't want it to distract him from his studies. Back at home, Jiang Sanlang found out that Zhou Mao had already left after receiving the goods, and villagers had also gone their separate ways. Handing the 2 taels of silver to Chun Yang, he talked about the incident at Liqing's. "I suspect that Chen's wife from the Han family is still not content. We have to be careful," he said. Jiang Sanlang sighed, "But this is a good thing, at least everything is out in the open now." He had always been worried that someone might come to claim Yingbao. Now that they had explicitly stated their intention, he felt relieved. It's easier to deal with a thief who actually steals than one who just covets what you have. Now knowing their intentions and tactics, he could figure out how to deal with them. No matter what, he would not give up his daughter. What about the birthmark on Yingbao's wrist? Chun Yang asked nervously. Since their daughter had been insistent on bathing and changing clothes herself, Chun Yang was not aware that the birthmark on her wrist had disappeared. Moreover, Yingbao had tattooed a small red turtle on her wrist. Even if Chun Yang occasionally saw her daughter's wrist, she would assume that the birthmark had been covered by her daughter's tattoo. Jiang Sanlang frowned in thought, "Let's deal with it when the time comes, there will always be a way." However, the Chens didn't mention anything about the birthmark on Yingbao's wrist today. They must not know about it. This was a good opportunity for him to figure out a solution unnoticed. Chun Yang pondered, do they really not know about the birthmark on Yingbao's wrist? Quite possible. Jiang Sanlang stroked his chin. If that is the case, it's even better. At this moment, Yingbao stuck her head in, asking, Dad, you're back. Jiang Sanlang waved her over. Bao Bao, come over here, let your mom and dad take a look at the birthmark on your wrist. Yingbao obediently ran over, pulling up her sleeve to reveal the clean wrist. It was entirely white, with no trace of the previously existing plum blossom-shaped birthmark. What? How is it gone? Both Chunyang and Jiang Sanlang exclaimed in surprise. Yingbao chuckled. I scrubbed it off. She couldn't say that she had actually burned it off with charcoal, which would be harder to explain and more troublesome. Scrubbed it off? What did you scrub it with? Chunyang checked Yingbao's wrists again, looking for the birthmark. It was really gone. The birthmark was honestly gone. Only a tiny red mole the size of a needle tip was left, hardly noticeable without close inspection. Chunyang beamed joyfully. Jiang Sanlang also heaved a great sigh of relief. Now they didn't need to worry about any conspiracies from the Chen family anymore. I used golden ears to scrub. Yingbao chuckled. I scrubbed for a long time. Upon hearing this, Chunyang held her daughter in her arms, nearly crying from happiness. She cried out in heartache, Bao Bao, you must have scrubbed away a whole layer of skin, right? She could only assume that the birthmark could have been removed by scrubbing away a layer of skin. Yingbao didn't say a word. It was better to let her parents misunderstand her. Scrubbing off a layer of skin was much better than explaining that she had burned off a piece of flesh. Jiang Sanlang patted his daughter on the head, feeling rather taken aback. His daughter was so sensible that she had figured out how to scrub off her own birthmark. What condition could she have probably scrubbed her skin to for the big coin-sized birthmark to fade? It was connected to the flesh after all. Did it hurt, Bao Bao? He asked, his eyes welling up. It didn't hurt, Yingbao shook her head. Good girl. Chunyang clung to her daughter, pressing their cheeks together. You're my good daughter. Her twin brother also came over, stretching his neck to press his cheek against his sister's. A Wu, a Jie, good girl. Yingbao laughed, pushing away her brothers' heads. Chapter 75, Chapter 75, Chapter 75, Inner Canon. Chapter 75, Chapter 75, Inner Canon. The incident of the Qin family from West Village stealing children came to a temporary end. However, the people of East Village started to look even more unfavorably at those from West Village. Even a small sign of friendliness was rare. A few women were more dramatic. When people weren't looking, they pried out the laundry stones near old Chen Laoshuan's house on the west bank of Chuana River, expressing their dissatisfaction and contempt. West Village had become a nest of child thieves. All of them were troublemakers. They didn't deserve to wash clothes or rinse rice in the same river as the people of East Village. Meanwhile, the Jiang family worked day and night to remove all the cotton seeds, and the three Jiang brothers began to pluck the cotton with their longbows. Surprisingly, this method worked quite well. The plucked cotton was softer and easier to turn into cotton coats and quilts. Therefore, Madame Jiang and her mother-in-law, Madame Jiang Lu, were busy making new cotton clothes for the family, using delicate ramie fabric. The ramie fabric had been dyed and the colors were very attractive. In the past, poor people couldn't afford dyed fabric and mostly just made clothes out of white ramie fabric. Now that the Jiang family had money, they could afford to dress everyone in clothes with color and patterns. They also made a dozen or so quilts, ensuring that everyone had warm, fluffy, cotton pads on their beds. It was almost like being treated like an aristocratic family. After plucking the cotton, Jiang Sanlang and his two brothers went to North Mountain to dig out the kudzu roots that had been untouched for 4 years. The roots had grown bigger than a man's thigh, easily breaking with a hit. They contained a good amount of starch. They scraped off the skin, cleaned the roots, cut them into small pieces, and crushed them in a stone mortar. They then soaked these kudzu root fragments in water to draw out the starch, leading to a white sediment the next day. Once dried, the kudzu powder was easy to store. During leisure time, a little could be dissolved in water, cooked, and served with syrup for a better taste. Though an ancient peasant food, it wasn't common because the kudzu root takes 3 to 4 years to grow before it can be dug up for its starch. Moreover, most roots yielded very low starch content, making the process time-consuming and inefficient. However, the kudzu vines could be harvested annually. Like redding hemp, it required a complicated process of peeling and beating. The woven kudzu fabric was a favorite summer garment material. It was cool and didn't cling to the body. For aristocratic families, fine kudzu fabric was a holy grail for cooling off in summers. Once the weavers sold their kudzu fabric to the cloth stores, it was often immediately bought by customers. Ingbao watched her father and others crushing the kudzu roots, soaking and filtering the starch, and found it very interesting. The process was similar to making tofu, with only one less step of boiling the brine. According to Shennong's classic of Materia Medica, kudzu is sweet in flavor and neutral in nature. It quenches thirst, treats fever, vomiting, various pain and raises energy, counteracting all kinds of poisons. But according to Lady One, kudzu is cold in nature and shouldn't be consumed by people with weak spleens and stomachs, as well as pregnant women and young children. Mentioning Lady One, Ingbao thought of Mr. One. It had been a long time since Ingbao had seen Mr. One, which made Lady One quite unhappy recently. With her being responsible for teaching 2 classes of students, she organized Ingbao and Wenshu's class schedules to be in the mornings, assigned homework for them to complete at home in the afternoon, so she could teach the class with Huzi and the others. However, Lady Wen still purchased Ingbao's premium golden and schwer fungi. For 5 kilograms of golden ears, Ingbao received over 60 taels of silver. With the previous silver ingots, she was indeed a little millionaire now. Her parents also made a lot this time, most likely over 100 taels. Danny and Ernie each made more than 7 taels of silver. They were overjoyed and urged their eldest cousin to take them shopping in the market. Ingbao didn't have much to buy, so she didn't go to make a fuss at the market. Instead, she devoted herself to studying medical classics at home. The medical classics, also known as books of prescriptions, are divided into 4 parts: classics, pulse diagnosis, prescriptions, and medicine. The scholar says, master the ways of the classics, navigate the arts of pulse, understand the workings of prescriptions, recognize the nature of herbs, have all of these 4, and you'll have all the skills needed. It implies that mastering these 4 skills, classics, pulse, prescriptions, and herbs, would qualify someone to become a doctor. The term classics here encompasses the inner canon, the difficult canon, the 5 viscera, acupunctures, gynecology and pediatrics, surgery, health preservation, medicinal recipes, herbal texts, food canons, and so forth, into 23 categories. Ingbao has only learned the inner canon so far. Becoming a doctor is still far from reach. The inner canon, also known as the Yellow Emperor's inner canon, includes Plain Questions and Spirit Pivot. Plain Questions is mainly a dialogue between the Yellow Emperor and his teachers, which discusses the deductions of the human body and its organs, as well as the relationships between heaven and men. Some of it is abstract. Spirit Pivot is a work on acupuncture, emphasizing the practice of meridians and acupuncture. Ingbao has finished studying Plain Questions, and is currently learning human acupoints and acupuncture techniques from Madame One. However, Madame One did not stress the importance of mastering acupuncture, but urged her to have some understanding of it. Because acupuncture cannot really cure diseases, it can only alleviate some symptoms. Similar to how shamans perform bloodletting to cure people, it's just another medical method. Next, Ingbao will start to learn the difficult canon. The difficult canon, also known as 81 difficult questions, focuses on basic theories, while also analyzing various related diseases. The content includes meridians, viscera, yin and yang, the 5 elements, diseases, circadian rhythm, conduit acupoints, acupuncture, etc., covering normal human physiology, anatomy, diseases, diagnosis, and treatment. Studying medicine strains the mind. Many things require rote memorization, causing Ingbao immeasurable anguish. During her spare time, she would call her 2 younger brothers to recite texts for her. The 2 twin boys were very smart and had already learned to recite the 3-character classic and 100 family surnames. Therefore, Ingbao also started teaching them to recognize and write characters, and encouraged them that whoever learned 10 characters first each day, she would take them out to ride a deer and visit the piglets when Hangin was raising. So, the twins became diligent and competed with each other to learn more and faster. Look at what you're scribbling. Every character takes up a whole page. Where else can you write? Not teaching leads to ignorance, but teaching results in shock. When Ingbao saw their scrawling handwriting, she almost fainted out of exasperation. The characters were not only skewed but also written outrageously large. If not for fearing to dampen her brother's enthusiasm for learning, she would like to smack their little claws with a ruler. Oh well, for the sake of enjoying the benefits when her brothers become officials in the future, she will just have to endure it. As the days went by, the weather became colder and colder. The people of the Jiang family were huddled up at home, enjoying the winter. They even bought a sheep to slaughter, and everyone gathered around the fire to roast and heat the mutton. However, the good times did not last long before the village official was knocking on the gong door to door, announcing the commencement of river work, which was essentially providing labor service. This work was not within the village, but rather according to the direction of the county magistrate, it was allocated to other places. This might take up to 10 or 20 days, or even a month. During this period, if you fell ill or were hungry, no one would take care of you, because the county government did not provide for the laborers' meals, nor did they care about where the laborers lived. So Chunyang quickly prepared bedding and dry food for her husband, along with a rain hat and raincoat, and even sewed a small tent with sheepskin for him. In case it rained or snowed, her husband and the two brothers would have a place to take shelter. Their family could pay for labor, but the village official said that for large families like theirs, even if they paid for laborers, at least one of the brothers would have to go serve. Otherwise, it would be difficult to account for later on. In other words, they could buy 2 quotas at most, but one must go work. The 3 Jiang brothers discussed and decided that they all might as well go. It was not easy for one person to be out there alone. In case something happened, no one would know about it. Chapter 76, Chapter 76, Chapter 76, Charity Diagnosis. Chapter 76, Chapter 76, Charity Diagnosis. Ingbao was also busy preparing medicinal pills for her father. These pills were actually made by steaming date paste, red bean paste, and wheat flour, kneading them into small balls roughly the size of bird eggs, and mixing in wuding ji. She made 50 in total, enough for her father to consume one every day, and even to spare some for her uncles. On the day they started working, before the break of dawn, the villagers picked up shovels, hammers, and baskets, some shouldering yokes, came to Jiang Sanlang's house and called for him to join them. Jiang Sanlang also shouldered a yoke, put his tools and bedding on it, and blended into the crowd with his elder and second brother who were shouldering the same loads. Ingbao got up early to stand with her mother at their courtyard to see her father off. "Mother, where is father going to do the river work?" asked Ingbao. Chunyang, holding her daughter's hand, returned inside the house. "I've heard they're headed to Simon Town a few dozen miles away." She wasn't sure about the exact location. The specific location of the river construction wasn't determined. A river section could stretch from one end to another for dozens of miles, and workers had to dig river channels on both banks, carry river mud, and clear up the blockages. Once a section of the river was finished, they would move to another part. "Bao Bao, you can sleep a little longer," Chunyang said. "It will be a while before daylight." "Okay." Ingbao climbed onto the kong, took off her cotton-padded jacket, and snuggled into her mother's quilt. The cotton bedding was indeed warm. She didn't want to get up once she was under it. At this moment, her 2 younger brothers were sleeping in another quilt, snoring lightly. Being able to sleep with her mother today made Ingbao very happy. Chunyang lay down on the kong, held her daughter in her arms, and said, laughing, "It's been a long time since I've been this close to Bao Bao." Ingbao snuggled up to her mother, because Bao Bao has grown up. "Yes, my Bao Bao is almost 4 in a blink of an eye." This referred to her actual age. By nominal age, Ingbao would turn 5 after the new year. The mother and daughter snuggled up and fell asleep unknowingly. The next morning, Ingbao still had to go to school. Ernie and Huzi came to call her. "Ingbao, that Qin Zhao didn't come to school yesterday." Lately, Ernie was fond of discussing all sorts of gossip. "Our teacher said she won't be coming anymore." Ingbao was not surprised at all. When the Han family suddenly sent Qin Zhao, they harbored ulterior motives. Now that their hopes have been dashed, they certainly will not let Qin Zhao attend school anymore. Such a short-sighted woman, besides wanting to bear sons all day, her mind was filled with nothing but ruthlessness. But she never thought herself ruthless. On the contrary, she felt wronged, as though everyone owed her and everyone was wronging her. She believed her children deserved a beating when they annoyed her. Also, Big Brother is to be engaged. Ernie kept babbling as she walked. Ingbao blinked. "Which family are you talking about?" "I think it's from the Chu family in the neighboring village." Ernie said, "I heard from Auntie that big cousin will go see her tomorrow." Jiangqing was going to be 16 after the new year, so it was indeed time for him to get an engagement. When they arrived at the school, Ernie and Huzi went to the neighboring classroom. Bao was still taking classes with Sister Wenshu. However, today, there was an additional student, Wen Hengyin. Wen Hengyin had already read books at an early age, but because he was unwilling to study seriously, his parents intentionally put him in the B class to receive primary education with the children who just started school. But lately, he became motivated. So Mrs. Wen called him back to Class A to study medical classics with Bao. Now that we've finished the inner classics, we'll do some free clinic for the villagers today, which will let me see what you've learned. Xiao Zhenyang said, I have informed the village leader. He will call the villagers to come for checkups. We can set up a table under the thatched pergola at the door. After taking their pulses, I have some decoctions here that can be given for free to those who come for a checkup. Upon hearing this, Bao's eyes widened. She was actually going to take patients' pulses now. Even though she knew this was just a simulated session, such an opportunity was rare. She needed to make good use of it and gain more practical experience. The trio excitedly carried tables and chairs to the entrance of the schoolhouse, under the grassy shed. The shed was now surrounded by cloth as wind and cold protection, leaving only one entrance and exit. After arranging the items needed for pulse diagnosis, the three children sat behind 3 tables in a row, quietly waiting for patients to come in. Within a quarter of an hour, the greetings between the clan leader and Lady Wen could be heard from outside, followed by a few people entering. Lady Wen led the way, followed by the clan leader and Chen Suanjing, and behind them were several older villagers. Bao was a bit nervous, and together with Wenshu and Hengyin, they stood up to greet the newcomers before resuming their seats to take the pulses of each of them. Before taking a patient's pulse, Bao would observe his complexion, then examine the whiteness of his eyes and the color of his lips and tongue coating, and check for any swelling in his cheeks and eyelids. If all these were normal, it meant that the person did not have any serious health problems. Then it was time to take their pulses. The first pulse Bao took was the clan leader's. She felt the pulse with 3 fingers. The pulse was smooth and round, unhurried and moderate, soft yet strong. This was a normal pulse, indicating the clan leader was healthy. Bao would write the pulse findings down after checking. Then she moved on to Chen Sanyo, the village leader. His pulse was taut like a string, straight and long, strong and hard, rising and falling squarely. This was a string pulse. People with this sort of pulse often suffer from excessive liver qi and weak stomach qi. Bao wrote this down faithfully, and at the end said, Grandpa Sanyo, do you have a bitter taste in your mouth every morning? To be healthier, you should eat less sweet foods and rice, and drink more tea. Chen Sanyo froze for a moment, then burst out laughing. Our little village doctor is indeed impressive. How did you figure this out? You're right, I love sweets, and I always find the bitterness unbearable every morning. Bao said seriously, eating too many sweets harms the spleen and stomach. If you keep it up, your liver fire will become more vigorous, your meridians will become harder, causing a stroke finally. Chen Sanyo nodded, I'll heed the advice of our little doctor Bao. I will eat less sweet and greasy foods. Recently his son had planted a lot of jelly ears which he often boiled and ate, adding maltose in it. As a result, his bitterness had worsened and sometimes he even felt numbness in his fingers. Lady Wen rechecked Chen Sanyo's pulse and found it similar to what Bao had written. She nodded in approval. Following that, Bao diagnosed several other people. They all had minor issues, but nothing too serious. Before long, the morning had passed. Those who had come to watch the fun and get a diagnosis began to leave. The 3 young doctors also packed up, and this free clinic session provided Bao with tremendous learnings, more than what she had gained even from reading the entire classic of questions. Therefore, a doctor cannot always rely only on books, they must apply their learnings, combining it with their own experiences to diagnose diseases. Unfortunately, she had not yet learned about prescriptions and did not know how to treat diseases. Wenshu and Hengyin also gained a lot from this experience. The 3 chatted about the pulses they had encountered and speculated about the diseases that these people might have. Returning home at noon, Bao was completely immersed in her thoughts about pulse diagnosis, oblivious to a person sneakily spying from behind the haystack. Ernie and Huzi accompanied Bao back home before returning to their uncle's home for a meal. As soon as Bao entered the courtyard, she saw her 2 younger brothers running towards her, showing her a few pages of characters they had scrawled. Well done, you 2 are really smart. Later, sister will take you to ride deer. Ing Bao stroked the top of their heads in praise, saying, "You write better than sister when she first started." The two young brothers grinned with delight, carrying the sloppy and scrawled characters. They ran back to the room joyfully. They wanted to write it a few more times for their sister to see. Ing Bao rubbed her eyes and sighed. Educating her younger brothers is a weighty responsibility and a long journey ahead. Chapter 77, Chapter 77, Chapter 77, Kidnapping the Kid. Chapter 77, Chapter 77, Kidnapping the Kid. After lunch, Ing Bao was walking Xiaolu while his two younger brothers sat atop Xiaolu's back. The three children leisurely strolled outside the house, digesting their meal. Suddenly, three women appeared from the side, heading straight towards them. Ing Bao was alert and prepared to take his brothers back to the house when he saw a woman smiling at him. "Don't be scared, Ing Bao. We just want to ask you a question." Ignoring them, Ing Bao led Yu back home and shut the courtyard gate. After putting his two younger brothers back into the room, Ing Bao told Su Chunyang, "Mom, three strangers came. They seemed to be from the Han family's house." Upon hearing this, Chunyang furrowed her brows, quickly setting down her spinning wheel and going outside to check. Standing at the gate were three women, one being the fourth and from the West Village's Wu family, another from the Han family, and the third woman, fair-skinned, who bore some resemblance to the Han woman. "What are you doing at my front door?" Chunyang asked in a low voice. Fourth Aunt Wu smiled awkwardly. Chunyang, let's go inside and talk. It's cold out here." "No need for that. Say whatever you need to hear at the gate." Chunyang would never allow these people into her home. "All right, we'll talk here." The fair-skinned woman said, "You're Su Chunyang, right? Let's not beat around the bush. The girl your family adopted is my elder sister's. We're just here today to ask you to return the child to my elder sister. We can discuss whatever compensation necessary." At this point, Chunyang finally realized who this fair-skinned woman was. She was Han Junyang's younger sister, Han Yueyang. "What evidence do you have that my child is your sister's?" Chunyang felt confident, not the least bit afraid of their extortion attempt. Even if it were Han's sister, even if it were the Lord himself, she wouldn't be afraid, because the birthmark on her daughter's wrist no longer existed. "Su Chunyang, are you that stubborn?" Han began. "We've come to discuss with good intentions, yet you show us this attitude." Having come here today, she naturally came prepared. Just yesterday, she had spent 5 taels to persuade fourth Aunt Wu to testify for her. From Aunt Wu, she learned about the plum blossom birthmark on the wrist of the baby girl she birthed. This news was excellent. All she had to do was check for the birthmark on the girl's wrist. She was sure it must be there. Otherwise, Su Chunyang wouldn't have the child's wrist wrapped up all day. "You come to my house with ill intent, and you expect me to be agreeable." Chunyang had grown impatient with these three and ordered them off. "Keep away from my house. Don't make me get rough. You, woman. You refuse the toast only to drink the punishment. You want a lawsuit, don't you?" Han became angry. Chunyang snorted, "Who wants a lawsuit? Seems to me you're trying to steal the child while my husband isn't home." "Steal what child? That girl is mine." Han screamed. "Yours? What proof do you have?" Chunyang laughed coldly. "Looks like Li Jing was too kind when he only fined you tails last time." "Sister, no point in talking to her." Han Yuanyang yanked at Han and gave her a signal. "Let's get to the point." Han got the hint and shouted, "My daughter has a birthmark on her wrist. If you dare, let us see. The truth will be evident." Han Yuanyang echoed, "Yes, we'll know whether the child is my sister's or not by examining her. Why should my daughter show you anything?" Su Chunyang refused to oblige. Jiang Sanlang had said not to let anyone see the girl's wrist unless it was absolutely necessary. "You say no and we just accept it. We insist on seeing it." Han scoffed. "Then try and see what happens." Without saying another word, Su Chunyang picked up a large broom from beside the courtyard gate and charged at them. The three women quickly scattered. Han shrieked, "Su Chunyang! You dare to hit us!" At this moment, second Aunt Wang came out upon hearing the noise. Seeing that Han from the West Village had come again, she quickly beckoned her son and whispered, "Go help your third brother's wife." She pointed at the chamber pot in the house. 14-year-old Wang Erlang got the hint, carried a feces bucket out, and splashed it at the three women, saying, "Where did these dung beetles come from, barging in wherever they please?" The three women were splashed with a skirt worth of shit and piss, screeched, and ran off as if flying. Seeing them go for the moment, Chunyang breathed a sigh of relief and said to Wang Erlang, "Thanks for today, brother Wang." Wang Erlang scratched the back of his head, grinning foolishly, "No problem, if they come again, just let me know. If I am not around, my mother will be." Chunyang smiled and nodded, "Then I will have to bother Auntie Wang." "In our own homes, there's no bother or not bother," Auntie Wang said from the courtyard doorstep. "Who are you with who?" Chunyang laughed again, put away the broom, saw Ing Bao and his two brothers peeking out the window, still engrossed in the scene. She went over and shut the window and huffily said, "Go and read your books." Ing Bao shrank back to the Kong with a giggle, leading his two little brothers to continue writing big characters. Actually, she wasn't afraid of these people at all when they attacked openly, but she had to guard against them resorting to underhanded tactics. Han Yuanyang was no good piece of work, even worse than her sister Han Junyang. Han Junyang was foolish, but that Han Yuanyang was not stupid. In her previous life, this woman was very sinister and more adept at manipulation than her sister. For the next 2 days, the three women did not come again, but Ing Bao did not believe the Han family was done. In her previous life, the Han family nagged Jiang family day after day, persistently making a fuss for more than half a year before finally taking it to the county government. The Han family must be hatching some nasty plot at this moment. One day, Ing Bao went to the school as usual. Walking with Ernie Huzi, they were almost at the school gate when two masked men suddenly rushed over. One masked man pushed Ernie and Huzi down, picked up Ing Bao and ran. Ing Bao. After a moment's stunned silence, Ing Bao started yelling for help, "Help! A child is being kidnapped." The men pulled out a cloth and covered her mouth and nose. Unsure what drug was added to it, Ing Bao felt her head spinning and quickly fainted. When she came to, she was already lying in a moving mule cart. Sitting next to her was none other than the woman of the Han family, Han Yuanyang. Seeing her wake up, Han Yuanyang gave her a cold look and said nothing. Lowering her head, Ing Bao saw that her hands and feet were tightly bound with cloth strips. The Han family dared to kidnap kids. This didn't seem to have happened in her previous life, so where did it all go wrong? Back then, although Han family kept bothering the Jiang family, they didn't dare to come to the Jiang family to kidnap anyone. Ing Bao struggled a few times, finding it didn't work, she started crying loudly. She needed to find out exactly what this little Han family woman was up to. Han family woman looked disgusted at her, kicking her a few times, ordering angrily, "Shut up." Ing Bao didn't stop but continued to cry. "I said shut up." The Han family woman kicked her a couple more times, threatening fiercely, "Cry again and I'll kill you." Ing Bao had no choice but to shut up and stop crying. After a while, she asked, "Who are you? Where are you taking me?" The Han family woman glanced at her, restraining her disgust, and said, "I'm your aunt. I'm taking you to the county town to live a good life." Ing Bao understood. It must be the Han family bribing someone to kidnap her, then settling her in her sister's home in the county town, and aiming for something else later. Since her life was not immediately endangered, Ing Bao was not worried for now. For now, the only thing she could do was wait until she reached the destination and then figure out how to escape. The mule cart jolted for who knows how long until they finally entered the gates of the county town. Seeing that Ing Bao had stopped crying and causing trouble, the Han family woman untied the ropes on her wrists and ankles. Chapter 78, Chapter 78, Chapter 78, Kidnapped to Zhouhe County. Chapter 78, Chapter 78, Kidnapped to Zhouhe County. The mule cart pulled into an alley and stopped in front of a courtyard. Little Mistress Han was the first to jump off, commanding, "Get off." With a sullen look, Ing Bao climbed out of the carriage, taking in her surroundings as she sat on the yoke. All the way here, she had already realized that this wasn't Qinchuan County. Clearly written on the city gate were the characters, Zhouhe County. This little Mistress Han was truly sinister, actually bringing her to Zhouhe County. Originally, she had thought that once she reached Qinchuan County, she could sneak off to ask Zhou Mao for help at Furifeng Trading Company. Now her plan had gone down the drain. She had never been to Zhouhe County before and couldn't tell the directions here. Moreover, a 3- or 4-year-old child venturing alone in a strange place is akin to a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, easily targeted by kidnappers. Little Mistress Han gave the coachman a signal, and he immediately lifted Ing Bao off the mule cart before taking the cart to the side to rest. Ing Bao was led into the courtyard by Little Mistress Han, all the while being quietly threatened. If you dare to speak nonsense, I'll cut off your nose and feed your hands and feet to the dogs, understand? Ha! Ing Bao nodded. Right now, she couldn't resist this woman outright, for fear she might indeed be silenced for good. Because Little Mistress Han's husband was under the county magistrate and had killed and seen blood before. In her previous life, when the county magistrate was cracking down on famine refugees, he had been dispatched. Chen Guanglu, leading a group of guards, indiscriminately slaughtered the refugees, as madly as chopping winter melons. As Chen Guanglu's wife, Little Mistress Han was already accustomed to the smell of blood. She didn't even blink when washing her husband's bloody clothes. Oh, isn't this third auntie? How come you have time to come back today? A middle-aged woman in old clothes came to greet her. Little Mistress Han smiled. I have a small favor to ask of you this time, big sister-in-law. Let's talk inside. Hurry and then. The Chen family big sister-in-law glanced at Ing Bao, smiling. Oh, whose child is this? Such a handsome kid. Little Mistress Han, she is from my elder sister's family. With that, the two women went inside. Little Mistress Han let go of Ing Bao, who squatted on the ground with her head down, picking at the dirt, acting like an innocent 3-year-old. Little Mistress Han sat down at the table and told big sister-in-law Chen, I came here this time to temporarily leave this child in your care. To avoid you having to take care of her for free, my elder sister has given 2 coins to cover her food expenses for these days. With that, she took out 2 copper coins and handed them to big sister-in-law Chen. Big sister-in-law Chen pretended to decline. Just another child in the house, how much could she eat? It's not right to take your sister's money. You're being too formal, third auntie. How can you not take the money, big sister-in-law? Little Mistress Han stuffed the coins into big sister-in-law Chen's arms. Quickly accept it, it's also my intention. Big sister-in-law Chen, with a more sincere smile, accepted the money, then. I'll accept it. Little Mistress Han touched her temples and said, it's only proper. Alas, big sister-in-law, you don't know, this child is quite mischievous and difficult to discipline. My elder sister is at her wit's end, which is why she came up with this plan. The child needs to taste a bit of hardship outside to understand the difficulties of being a parent. Please, big sister-in-law, put in a little more effort to discipline her. Don't hesitate to spank her as necessary, just don't beat her to death. Big sister-in-law Chen blinked her eyes and laughed, look at what you're saying. I think this child is quite obedient. I don't see the difficulty in disciplining her. Big sister-in-law, you don't know. This child may seem obedient, but she's actually quite wicked and full of lies. You must not believe her. The two had a good long chat before Mrs. Han took her leave. As she was about to leave, she warned Chen's sister-in-law not to believe anything the child might say. She also said, if she dares to talk nonsense, don't be afraid to smack her until she stops. Chen's sister-in-law frowned upon hearing this, looking at the child crouching not far away and not saying a word. Ing Bao didn't make a sound the whole time. Whether she was in the room or outside in the courtyard, she listened to the entire conversation between Mrs. Han and Chen's sister-in-law. Well, so this was the plan of the Han sisters. First, they planned to foster her out to the countryside until the situation had calmed, and then take her back. During this time, someone would properly discipline her, break her will, until she dared not have any other ideas. To the Han sisters, she was nothing more than a 3-year-old child with a short memory. They believed that after a year or so, she would forget her original identity. Even a year may not be necessary. Under the education of a stick, they estimated it would take only a month for her to completely behave. After seeing off Mrs. Han, Chen's sister-in-law's face fell. She coldly looked at Ing Bao crouched in the corner, gave her a light kick and said, "Did you hear that? Behave, or don't blame me for hitting you." Ing Bao nodded her head. Chen's sister-in-law then turned to a young boy and girl standing nearby. "Watch her, don't let her leave the yard." The girl nodded obediently, "Yes, mother." The boy, although not replying, looked curiously at the very young girl. In the evening, when Chen's sister-in-law's husband came home and saw the extra girl, he asked which family she was from. Chen's sister-in-law told him everything, even chortled, "The Han family is really something. They asked us to take care of their niece. What do they think I am? A nanny for the Han family?" Chen had a mouthful of soup. "You agreed to take her in, why complain now?" Chen's sister-in-law shot him a look. "If it weren't for those 2 coins, I would have driven her away." Chen stayed silent. 2 coins really wasn't a small sum, and this girl's auntie really was generous. I wonder, if this child is from her elder sister's family, why doesn't she look after her herself? And why send her to our place? Don't tell me this child was stolen. Chen's sister-in-law kicked her husband. "What do you think of my guess?" Chen frowned. "If that's true, we can't keep this child here." If the child was indeed kidnapped, wouldn't their family be taking the blame for the Han sisters? The imperial court's punishment for trafficking people was severe, ranging from decapitation to banishment to the borders. For a mere 2 coins, it's really not worth taking such a risk. I knew Han Yuanyang was up to no good. Would we ever get anything good from her? I hardly see her visiting us, and now she comes to us from far away, just to shift her problems over to us. Chen complained. "What use is there in saying all this? You shouldn't have agreed to keep the child." Chen's sister-in-law gave her husband a sidelong glance. "I didn't react at the time, but the more I listened to her, the more suspicious I became. She claimed the child was unruly. This fair and lovely-looking child seems pampered at home. How could the Han sisters let such a doted-on child be disciplined by others? And what about the part where she said it's fine to hit and scold her as long as she doesn't die? How does anyone discipline children like that? I even suspect that this child is from the enemy of the Han family and was deliberately taken to seek revenge." Chapter 79, Chapter 79, Chapter 79, Became a Little Beggar. Chapter 79, Chapter 79, Became a Little Beggar. Chen De heard his wife say this and became uneasy. Won't keeping the child at home be a disaster? Who could argue with that? Chen De began to worry. What if we hand her over to the authorities, suggested Chen De. Hand her over to what authorities? Chen De was annoyed. If the child was indeed kidnapped, turning her in won't help us. We would end up offending the Han family and your brother for no reason. Your brother might even blame you for meddling too much. Chen Guanglu, who was good at ingratiating himself and networking with others since his youth, had much interaction with county officials. His connections were wide-ranging. How should they say it if they just gave the child away themselves? Should they say that the Han family sent her and that they are turning her in for fear of getting involved? They might end up with the tables turned on them by the couple, causing trouble for themselves. So what should we do? Chen De scratched his head, distressed. This won't work, and that won't work. Why did you agree with her in the first place? Chen De kicked her husband, irritated. I told you, I didn't realize it at the time. Chen De was silent, burying his head and eating his porridge. Humph, if the Han family isn't letting the child out, then let's let her get lost by accident. Chen Deseo's eyes sparkled. We can't watch her every second of the day. Chen De looked up from his rice bowl. What if the child doesn't leave? If she doesn't, we'll make her leave. Chen Deseo had full confidence. Tomorrow there is a temple fair. Children get lost at these events all the time. In the evening, Ing Bao was arranged to sleep in a small thatched hut filled with miscellaneous items and firewood. Chen Deseo threw her a tattered hemp blanket, telling her to sleep in the pile of grass. After they left, Ing Bao entered her little nest to check the items she had gathered. After Xiaojia's drowning incident, she had stored many things in that little nook. Old clothes, blankets, ropes, baskets, some grains, and flour, none of which were of use at the moment. She lifted her wrist and looked at it. It had been cleaned, which meant the Han family already knew that she didn't have a birthmark. That is to say, they must have already realized she wasn't their daughter. Even knowing that she wasn't their daughter, they had still sent her to Zhohe County, over 100 miles away. This meant the Han family hadn't given up on their idea. So what awaited her was either being silenced or being silenced. It was just a matter of time. If the Han family indeed had a son, or if anything else happened during this period, there's no doubt she would be killed sooner than later. It's far too easy for an adult to kill a child, then find a random place to bury the body. Nobody would have any idea. Therefore, she couldn't stay here and she couldn't tell these people the truth. Her best act was to pretend to be a naive child and escape when the chance arose. Early the next morning, the tattered blanket awning bow was stripped off. Chen Deseo looked at her with a friendly smile and gave her 2 black buns. You must be hungry. Eat quickly. Ing Bao took the 2 black buns owned out. Chen Deseo said, there's a temple fair outside the front street today, do you want to go? Ing Bao's eyes brightened, and she nodded. Let your big sister take you then. She said, giving a girl standing at the side 2 coins, take good care of your little sister at the temple fair. She's your aunt's relative after all. The girl happily took the 2 coins, held Ing Bao's hand, and led her outside. Ing Bao, with a bewildered look on her face, followed the girl outside. Looking back, she saw Chen Deseo looking at her with a heavy face. The sky outside was gray and it wasn't very bright. An 8 or 9-year-old girl leading a toddler girl little more than 3 years old out of the alley didn't attract any attention. This dirty and dilapidated lane was a home to the less affluent people, whose outfits were ragged, even compared to the villagers of Dongchen village. The girl led Ing Bao left and right, across 2 streets, eventually arriving at the bottom of a hill. There were already many vendors setting up their stalls here. It appeared to be the day of the temple fair. The girl took Ing Bao to an old elm tree and let her sit on its roots, telling her to stay put while she went to buy some food. Ing Bao nodded, watching as the girl bounced away and quickly disappeared into the crowd. Was she left there by herself? Ing Bao looked around, surprised. She quickly stood and started walking in a different direction. Ahead was a large patch of evergreen shrubs, lush and green even in the piercing winter cold. Ing Bao hid among the bushes and took out a worn-out padded jacket from her bag. The clothes were old and faded, but they were wearable still. But just to be safe, Ing Bao spread the old padded jacket on the ground and stomped on it for a while. When she picked it up again, the outside of the jacket was hardly recognizable. Ing Bao tiptoed and looked around, seeing no one about, she quickly shed her new red padded clothes and put on the grimy, unbecoming old outfit. She then pulled her hair loose, grabbed a handful of mud to smear on her face and head, and then slyly took out a small bronze mirror to look at her reflection. She was content, she looked exactly like a dirty little beggar. She had disguised herself as a beggar in her past life, so she knew how to pull this off. Who would have thought she would have to play a beggar again today? But she knew she could only enhance her performance. Dressed like this, she wouldn't be easily captured and sold while traveling alone. Those child snatchers wouldn't want a filthy, smelly, ugly little beggar. They would refuse her even if she was offered to them, for fear of contracting diseases. She carefully put away the bronze mirror and the new clothes and lowered her head to check her feet. On her feet were half-new, warm, and lightweight cotton shoes which seemed out of place with the rest of her outfit. However, she didn't have any suitable shoes in her bag. She certainly couldn't go barefoot in the dead of winter. Oh, well. It would have to do. Just as she lifted her head, she found herself looking into a pair of eyes. Ing Bao was startled and took a few steps back. The person squatting across from her was a teenager, dirty from head to toe and dressed in tattered clothes that were even worse than hers. He looked at her suspiciously and asked, "Which hill are you from?" Ing Bao blinked, "No hill." She understood what the boy meant, he was asking if she belonged to a beggar gang. The boy scratched his messy hair, stood up and looked around. He asked again, "Did you see a little girl in red clothes?" "I saw her walk in here, but she disappeared." Ing Bao shook her head. "Didn't see her, she probably went that way," she said, pointing towards a narrow path by the bushes. The boy was about to go in that direction but then turned back and asked, "Since you don't have a hill, do you want to come with me?" Ing Bao thought for a moment and nodded, "Okay." And so, the 2 beggars walked down the slope and not finding the little girl in red, they turned back. The teenage beggar took Ing Bao to meet another beggar, they discussed their begging territories, and went their separate ways. Ing Bao continued to follow the boy, eventually settling down in a suitable spot along the road. The boy beggar looked left and right, carefully inspecting his surroundings. Every time he spotted a friendly-looking woman, he sent Ing Bao forward to beg. With no other choice, Ing Bao ran up to them and pitifully stretched out her hands to a middle-aged woman. She was familiar with this kind of work, so she did it naturally and smoothly, without any embarrassment. Chapter 80, Chapter 80, Chapter 80, The Little Beggar is a Gold _L Dog Head. Chapter 80, Chapter 80, The Little Beggar is a Gold _L Dog Head. Oh bother, just his luck to be targeted by a little beggar. If he refuses to follow the beggar, stating that he has his own territory, he's bound to get a good thrashing from this young beggar, who will likely grab him and sell him off. In his past life, he had disguised himself as a beggar and lived the life of one for a while, gaining some knowledge of the rules of the beggar's gang. They divide their begging territories. If another beggar comes along, they either fight it out, with the victor retaining the spot, or the intruder joins the resident beggar. Clearly not able to beat this young beggar in his teens, and unable to escape immediately, he could only temporarily join them. But joining them also depends on capability. If he fails to perform well, he could still be taken away and sold by the beggar. That would be the time to lament a heavens that did not answer and an unresponsive earth. A middle-aged woman took a pitiful look at Ing Bao, and took out a white steamed bun from her gift basket and handed it to her. Here, eat. Poor thing, so young and already out begging. Ing Bao thanked her, took the bun, and ran back to give it to the young boy. He was quite pleased with the bun, and gave half to Ing Bao, keeping the other half for himself. Ing Bao was also hungry, and sat on the ground nibbling the bun. At this moment, another mother and daughter going to the temple fair came by. Without waiting for the boy's command, Ing Bao ran to them and reached out her dirty hands. Within less than an hour, Ing Bao had managed to beg back several buns and pastries, and 3 coins. Only then did the boy let Ing Bao rest and took over the job. However, it was clear that he wasn't as likable as a 3 or 4-year-old child, or perhaps he was a familiar face, and the people did not take him seriously, thus reluctant to give him anything. The boy seemed a bit upset, his roguishness clearly revealed on his face. Sometimes he would even spit at the back of those who refused him. So Ing Bao had to step in again. Possibly because a child is just too endearing, even when they're covered in dirt and unrecognizable, there will still be women willing to offer her alms. When Ing Bao returned once again with a full pocket of food, the eyes of the beggar boy gleamed, looking at her as if she were a golden nugget. "What's your name?" the young boy asked, as he sat down by the side of the road. "Ing Bao, my name is Baoying. What's yours?" The boy didn't directly answer and said, "You should call me Big Brother Kuei from now on." Ing Bao obediently called out, "Big Brother Kuei." Once they exchanged names, it was like acceptance, an acknowledgement of each other's territory. Kuei seemed relaxed now, not treating Ing Bao with the same guarded vigilance as before. After the fair, Kuei led Ing Bao to an abandoned, dilapidated temple. It was a semi-collapsed land temple. Half of one wall had collapsed, the other 3 barely supporting the ramshackle roof. Inside the temple, dried grass was spread out where 4 other young beggars sat, laughing and joking. They were all quite young, none older than 12 or 13. Among them were 3 boys and 1 girl, the girl being only about 8 or 9 years old. "Brother Kuei, you're back," the girl called out to the beggar boy. Seeing him leading a small 3 or 4-year-old beggar, she asked curiously, "Where did you pick this one up?" "At the temple fair." Kuei entered the dilapidated temple and pointed to a corner, bowing, "You will sleep over there from now on." Ing Bao looked over and nodded. Kuei took out the buns and pastries from his pocket, but didn't take out the 3 coins. "All this was gotten by Baoying, so from now on she's your junior sister." The rest of the young beggars smiled at Baoying, even handing over the blackened food they had in their hands. Ing Bao didn't mind, accepted it and put it into her own pocket. The girl beggar approached and asked with a smile, "Why were you alone at the temple fair?" "Ing Bao, I got separated from my parents." The girl looked at her sympathetically, reached out to touch her muddied head, and said, "Let me comb your hair for you." Ing Bao shook her head quickly. "No." She managed to put her hair in a messy bun and would not allow it to be combed, waiting for the opportunity to return home with it as is. The city of Zhouhe County is about 100 miles away from the city of Qinchuan County, and also around 100 miles from Chuana town. As long as she followed the official road, she should be able to return home in less than 10 days. Seeing Ing Bao's obstinacy, the girl didn't persist, she turned to use a flint to light a fire and cook some food. The beggars had a bountiful harvest today. Not only did they cook a large pot of assorted food, but everyone also got a bun and a piece of cake. Ingbao also ate a bowl of mixed stew and then lay down in the corner. A brother named Kuei brought her a tattered mat to keep her warm at night, then lay down next to her. The little beggars huddled together and quickly fell asleep. Seeing that Kuei hadn't fallen asleep, Ingbao tentatively asked, "Brother Kuei, I got separated from my parents, can you take me home? I'm sure my parents will pay you a good sum of silver." Kuei clearly didn't believe it and laughed, "Are you sure your parents would pay me silver?" Ingbao nodded, "Certain." Kuei sneered, "But I'm not sure. Instead of a thankless task, it might be better to sell you to a flower boat, where at least I'll get 10 taels of silver." Ingbao's face fell. She knew it, the beggar was not to be trusted. Not just the beggars, no one in the whole county is willing to go hundreds of miles to send a strange child home. They have reason not to believe her. Who can guarantee that a child's words will come true? In the eyes of most people, she is a little girl, might even have been intentionally abandoned by her family, so why would they be willing to walk hundreds of miles to take her home? So, Ingbao could only figure it out on her own. Better to rely on herself than others, she would just walk home by herself. Alas, she disappeared suddenly, and she didn't know how her mother was. Her father and uncles had gone to work on the river, and only her grandparents were left at home. They were probably very worried. The following day, tiny snowflakes began to fall. The beggars in the land temple were shaking from the cold, each huddled under a straw mat, refusing to budge. Although Ingbao also felt the cold, she could bear it. She crawled out to take care of her needs, then returned. Looking up, she noticed Kuei leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, seemingly staring at her all along. Her face darkened, and she angrily asked, "Were you peeping at me?" Kuei chuckled, "You're just a kid, what does it matter if I watched you?" Ingbao was truly angry now. She rushed over and kicked him fiercely, shouting, "Shameless!" Surprisingly, Kuei didn't get angry. He picked her up by the collar of her coat and returned her to the land temple, throwing her into the straw nest, saying, "I'll take you out for something delicious later." Ingbao rolled into the straw nest, ignoring him. After sleeping for another 2 hours, the other young beggars began to wake up. There wasn't much food left from last night, they divided what remained, and then went out individually. Kuei picked up Ingbao again, "Come on, we're off for a feast." "Don't pick me up. I can walk." Ingbao swatted his hand away dissatisfiedly and scurried off. The snowflakes hit her face causing a stinging sensation, but Ingbao ignored them, running at full speed. "You're heading in the wrong direction, this way." Kuei caught up to her in a few steps, catching hold of her arm, "This way." He pointed in one direction, "We're off to the Sanqing Temple. There's a feast there for the festival of the Lower Yuan, if we time it right, we can get glutinous rice balls." Chapter 81, Chapter 81, Chapter 81, Lying is a transformation to a rat 1. Chapter 81, Chapter 81, Lying is a transformation to a rat 1. The Taoist temple was located on the mountain, and due to the falling of snowflakes, the path was not easy to navigate. After walking a little while, Ingbao refused to continue, and sat under a tree by the roadside, motionless. She had no desire to eat any glutinous rice balls, all she wanted was to go home, and be cozy under her warm cotton quilt, listening to her brothers recite their lessons. Observing that Ingbao wouldn't budge, Brother Kuei eventually picked her up, but feeling that it was too tiring, he decided to carry her on his back instead. Ingbao was delighted by the leisure, laying on Brother Kuei's back and looking around. A good number of people had already gathered at the entrance of the Taoist temple. They were all there to send offerings. They saw that worshippers placed bundles of food in front of the Supreme Elder Lord's statue and burned incense to pray. Brother Kuei, looking at the offerings, couldn't stop the saliva in his mouth. There were glutinous rice balls, steamed bread cakes, as well as whole chickens and entire fishes. Among them, the chicken and fish would be taken back by the worshippers, but the scattered glutinous rice balls and bread cakes wouldn't be carried away. Brother Kuei put Ingbao down and pushed her forward, prompting her to collect the discarded offerings. Out of necessity, Ingbao moved forward, looked around, and then dashed to the altar to pick up the leftover bread cakes after the worship. Once the first round of worshippers had completed their ceremonies, they took their offerings away, and then the second round of people would place their offerings. In the meantime, scattered cakes would fall to the ground, ignored by all. Ingbao wasn't particularly lucky. There were other children picking food too, so she had to wait off to the side. People were queuing up to worship, also chatting in twos and threes. Suddenly, a person wearing a Taoist robe in the crowd caught Ing Bao's attention. This man was in his 30s, wearing a black turban, handsome and kind-faced, sporting short whiskers on his chin. However, his neck had a lump the size of an egg, covered by a kerchief. Despite this, Ing Bao, with her sharp eyes, could still see it. What attracted her attention was not the lump on his neck, but the shiny, large gourd that he carried over his shoulder. At the waist of the gourd, there was a colorful silk ribbon tied. At the end of the ribbon were tassels, attached with several jade beads. With such fine adornments on the gourd, it's clear this gourd was deeply cherished by its owner. Was this Wu Daozi? In her previous life, she had encountered Wu Daozi, the man obsessed with gourds, a few times. She had never imagined that this was what he looked like in his youth. If it weren't for the large gourd he carried, Ing Bao wouldn't have recognized him. In the old days, when she first met him, he was already destitute, his hair almost gone, his body thin as a bag of bones, and the lump on his neck was as large as a melon, tilting his head to one side. Despite this, he was a brilliant man. Not only was his calligraphy excellent, but he was also skilled in playing the guqin and sword dancing. In his early 20s, he had achieved the rank of top scholar. He went to Beijing to participate in the imperial examination and earned the second highest qualification. For some unknown reason, he became a wandering Taoist, carrying a large gourd and roving around to treat people. He was known as the Gourd Divine Doctor. As for whether he was a divine doctor, Ing Bao wasn't sure, because he never healed the large lump on his own neck. Despite this, he was a man of his word, honorable and generous. He would even lose money treating the poor, giving them medicine for free. She never thought she would be so fortunate to meet Wu Daozi in his youth right here, right now. Ing Bao was secretly delighted and approached him to initiate a conversation. "Mister, your gourd looks very nice. We have many of this kind of gourd at home too." Wu Daozi glanced at her and, recognizing her as a little beggar, didn't pay attention to her comment. Seeing that he was ignoring her, Ing Bao stepped forward and said, "We really do have this kind of gourd at home, much bigger than yours, this big." She stretched out her arms to illustrate. Ultimately, Wu Daozi broke his silence and asked, "Where is your home?" "My home is in Chuanhe Town, Qinchuan County." Ing Bao, seeing that he had caught his interest, cheerfully replied, "Everyone in our village says that our gourd was gifted by an immortal, and touching it can bring good luck." "Oh." Wu Daozi laughed, "Then why didn't it bring you good luck?" With a darkened face, Ing Bao argued, "That's because I encountered a bad person who stole me away and brought me here." Wu Daozi surveyed the child and asked, "Is everything you said true?" "Yes," Ing Bao nodded, "whoever lies turns into a rat." Wu Daozi laughed again, saying, "I was asking about your family's gourd." Ing Bao's smile faltered, immediately replying, "Our gourd is also real. If you don't believe it, you can go to Simon Town in Qinchuan County and see. A cloth shop owner there paid 30 taels of silver for our big gourd, and it is still being used in the shop." Wu Daozi mused, "Really? Really, really?" Ing Bao looked around and whispered, "If uncle doesn't believe me, I can take you there." Before Wu Daozi could answer, Quiche suddenly came over. His face was very unpleasant, and he picked up Ing Bao and walked out of the shop. Ing Bao struggled a few times and, seeing that she couldn't escape, she gave Wu Daozi a pitiful look, trying to squeeze out a few tears. As expected, Wu Daozi followed them. "Young man, please wait a moment." He quickly caught up with Quiche. "What is your relation to her?" "Put the child down first, I have something to say." Quiche cast a wary look at him and coldly asked, "What are you trying to do?" "She is my sister." Hearing this, Wu Daozi hesitated. Ing Bao struggled mightily, shaking her head violently. "No, I'm not his sister." "Uncle, save me." Wu Daozi frowned, took a few steps to block the young man's path, and still spoke gently, "Young man, it might be best if we let her down and let her explain whether or not she is your sister." Quiche grew angry, yelled out loud, "Mind your own business. Get lost. Or else you'll see what I'm capable of." Wu Daozi was unyielding. "Young man, if this child is really your sister, I won't say another word, but it's clear she's not." "I'll say it again, get lost." Quiche growled menacingly, "She's mine, whether she's my sister or not, I was the one who found her first. From now on, she's following me." Wu Daozi. Angered, Ing Bao lunged forward and bit him sharply on the neck. Hurt by her bite, Qish quickly pulled her off his neck and threw her to the ground. Ing Bao quickly got up from the ground and threw herself at Wu Daozi, crying, "Uncle, save me." Wu Daozi also reacted swiftly, pulling Ing Bao behind him, and warned Qish, who was rushing towards them, "I know the clerk at the county government. Young man, if you dare to act rashly, I can bring you there to settle this." At this moment, passers-by began to notice the situation and came to investigate. Someone remarked, "Isn't this the beggar from up ahead? What's happening? Is he trying to hurt someone? If he dares to hurt someone, we'll send him to the county government." Qish indeed hesitated, stepping back a few steps. He glared at Ing Bao fiercely and then turned away. Watching the young beggar leave, Wu Daozi squatted down and asked Ing Bao, "Now, tell me the truth. Where is your home and how did you end up here?" This time, Ing Bao was really crying. She stuttered and whimpered as she recounted everything, at last saying, "I want to go home. Uncle, can you take me home? My parents will reward you, they will even give you gourd seeds. The gourds grown in our house are big, from now on, we'll give them all to you." Wu Daozi smiled, saying, "I'm on my way to Qinchuan County anyway, might as well take you there." "Great." Ing Bao's tears turned into laughter. She asked, "What's your name, uncle? Where is your hometown? My parents will visit your home to thank you." Wu Daozi patted Ing Bao's head and laughed, "My last name is Wu, and my hometown is a long way from here, so your parents probably can't make it." Chapter 82, Chapter 82, Chapter 82, Chance Encounter. Chapter 82, Chapter 82, Chance Encounter. Wu Daozi led Ing Bao down the mountain, saying as they walked, "I'm taking you to an old friend's house to stay for a few days. After I take care of some things here, I'll send you back to Qinchuan County." "Okay, thank you, Uncle Wu." The two of them trudged through the snow, passing two streets. When they were near the alley of Aunt Chen's house, they saw a mule cart emerging from within. Ing Bao shivered, instinctively hiding behind Wu Daozi. That was the mule cart of the Han family. Why had she come back? Wu Daozi also noticed Ing Bao's vigilance. He glanced at the mule cart and asked, "What's wrong?" Ing Bao whispered, "It's that kidnapper, she's back. Go. Go." The coachman waved the whip and urged the mule forward. The mule cart quickly pulled away, disappearing into the distance. Ing Bao kept her head lowered, her fingers tightly clutching Wu Daozi's sleeve, not daring to look up until the mule cart was no longer visible. The Han family member must have had unspeakable motives coming here. Maybe she intended to silence her, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. The journey from Qinchuan County to Zhouhe County was more than 100 miles, not just a mile or two. The Han family's woman had just returned the day before yesterday. It was unreasonable for her to hastily return today. There must be that her mother had informed the officials, the government had already found some evidence, so the Han family's woman was in a hurry to return to Zhouhe County, intending to deal with her. She couldn't let that happen, she had to hurry home. Only by returning home could the danger be lifted and the instigator be brought to justice. After walking for a while, Ing Bao followed Wu Daozi to a house where two horse-mounting stones stood at the entrance. He knocked on the door knocker and soon a teenage servant boy opened the door. Upon seeing the visitors, he immediately opened the wooden door with a full-face smile. "It turns out it's Master Wu, our master is free today." Wu Daozi nodded to him and pointed at Ing Bao, "This is a child from my hometown. I plan to take her to Qinchuan County. I would like to borrow your house for a few days. Could you please convey this request to your master for?" The servant boy hurriedly said, "Since it's a guest brought by Master Wu, I'll inform my lady right away. We will definitely arrange for her properly. Please come in." "Thank you." Only then did Wu Daozi lead Ing Bao across the threshold. Shortly after, Wu Daozi was led to an outer courtyard, while Ing Bao was handed over to a dark-skinned maid by the servant boy. The maid, who was about 13 or 14, looked at Ing Bao with disdain, but still brought her a basin of water to wash her face and hair. Fortunately, while Ing Bao's face and hair were dirty, her body was not. After washing some semblance of cleanliness, the maid was surprised and said as she wiped Ing Bao's hair, "What happened to you, little girl? Did you fall into a mud ditch?" Ing Bao nodded. The maid cleaned her hands and face and led her to a courtyard. "Madam, here is the girl brought by Master Wu." I have cleaned her up. Would you like to meet her? The maid asked from under the eaves of the house. They heard an old woman's voice from inside. The mistress has already seen her. Take her to the guest house, find her a room and let her stay there. She should not leave the courtyard unless necessary. Yes. The maid led Ing Bao to the guest house, opened the door of a room and let her in. The guest room was small and full of dust, as if no one had lived there for a long time. There were no covers on the small wooden bed either. However, the maid soon brought another quilt and sent her a pot of hot tea. Ing Bao gave thanks, climbed onto the bed and spread the quilt, before going to sleep. The snow outside was getting heavier and heavier, quickly covering the ground in a layer of white. Jinchuan County. Su Chunyang was in tears, clinging onto Sister Jiang Yunyang's hand. It must be the cursed Han family who hired someone to abduct my Bao Bao, ugh. I will not let them go. Jiang Yunyang sighed, wiped her sister-in-law's tears, and comforted her. Don't worry, Sun Liqing has already submitted your statement to the county government. There should be a verdict soon. Jiang Lu's wife also cried. Chunyang, stop crying. I'm also feeling terrible. Although we didn't catch anyone, someone recognized one of them as Chen Ergu, that damned beast. He hasn't returned home these days, and I don't believe he'll never come back. That day, 2 veiled men took the child and quickly disappeared into the reeds, leaving no trace. The villagers chased them for a long time and couldn't find anyone. Upon closer inspection, they found that they had escaped from the other side. However, someone recognized one of them as Chen Ergu from West Village. The other person was probably Chen Ergu's friend or relative. So Old Man Jiang went to Lijing to file a complaint. Sun Liqing searched several places but didn't find anyone. In the end, he went to the husband's family where Chen Ergu had arranged for his daughter to be adopted, and learned that Chen Ergu had been living there these past few days. However, noticing Sun Liqing and his men arriving, he and his son-in-law had already fled. Having failed to catch the culprits, on behalf of the Jiang family, Sun Liqing wrote an accusation asserting that Chen Ergu had abducted the child. At Su Chuanyang's strong suggestion, they also included Han's family sisters, the daughters-in-law of Chen Laoshuan, as they were also suspects in the accusation. They initially wanted to include Aunt Wu as well in the report, but she took an oath, claiming that she knew nothing, but admitted to receiving 5 taels of silver from the Han sisters for revealing the birthmark on Han's youngest daughter's wrist. She denied knowing anything beyond that. So, Chunyang left her twin sons in the care of her sister-in-law and traveled with her in-laws and Sun Liqing to the county seat. After Sun Liqing submitted the document to the government office, he went to his son's house. Chunyang and her in-laws stayed at her elder sister's house to wait for news from the government office. But they waited for several days without any news from the government office. What Chunyang and others didn't know was that, after the complaint reached the bookkeeper at the county government, he did not report it to the county magistrate. He took the written accusation to Chen Guanglu and laughed. Chen Guanglu, your wife is in big trouble. Chen Guanglu was surprised. What do you mean, Master Lin? Lin, the bookkeeper, shook the report in his hand. Someone has accused your wife of hiring others to kidnap a child. 30 villagers have put their fingerprints on the report as evidence that this is true. What? Let me see. Chen Guanglu extended his hand to take a look, but Lin moved it away. You can't see it, you can't see it. Lin laughed. This matter is serious. I suggest you go back and ask for details. Fortunately, our Honorable Mingfu is about to step down, so legal matters will be postponed for a while, otherwise, I wouldn't tell you about this. Chen Guanglu frowned and could only thank Lin. Thank you Master Lin for informing me. Once I find out more, I'll have to bother you for guidance. Lin stroked his beard and smiled without answering. Chen Guanglu rushed back home and asked his wife as soon as he saw her, what did you do in Chuana town? Little Lady Han was startled and slowly said, I just went to visit my sister, what else could I do? Tell the truth. Chen Guanglu slapped the table and shouted, the complaint has been submitted to the county government, and you're still lying. Tell me. What have you done? Little Lady Han was startled, and the teacup in her hand fell to the ground and shattered. Seeing her husband's furious expression, little Lady Han dared not hide it anymore and told him all she had done in Chuana town. The child picked up by the Jiang family is clearly my sister's, but they stubbornly refused to let go, so I suggested to my sister to hire a man to take him back. Am I wrong to do so? Chapter 83, Chapter 83, Chapter 83, My medical skills are excellent 1. Chapter 83, Chapter 83, My medical skills are excellent 1. Is that all? Chen Guanglu was suspicious. Then why did the Jiang family file a lawsuit with the county government? You didn't kill anyone, did you? Absolutely not. The look of the younger Han wife was evasive. We just took the child to Zhouhe County, and it was not even Jiang's child. Why did she have the audacity to sue? Fool. Chen Guanglu threw up his hand and slapped the younger Han wife, rebuking angrily, even if it's not from the Jiang family, how do you know she isn't from your elder sister's side? The younger Han wife covered half of her face and didn't dare to make a sound. Chen Guanglu pointed at her and rebuked, since you claim she was your elder sister's child, you should have handed her over. It would be up to your elder sister to deal with the Jiang family. Isn't that what you should have done? So why did you send the child to my elder brother's house? The younger Han wife broke out into sobs. I had no choice. The child had no birthmark on her wrist, and my elder sister feared trouble from the other family and didn't dare to keep the child. She asked me to bring her back to Qinchuan County for a while, but I couldn't possibly bring her home to us. Chen Guanglu gritted his teeth in frustration, kicked her, knocking her to the ground, and cursed, "Wicked woman. So you just dumped that troublemaker on my elder brother." Although he was not very close to his elder brother, after all, he was his only blood-related elder brother. How dared the Han wife? How dared she hand that child over to his elder brother? What if the Jiang family becomes relentless? Wouldn't his elder brother get punished for the Han sisters then? Chen Guanglu paced around the room with his hands on his hips, glancing diagonally at the sobbing younger Han wife. He threatened, "You had better go to Zhouhe County right now and take care of that child. Make it a clean job without leaving a trace. She is just 3 or 4 years old, easy to clean up. If you leave any evidence behind, I'll divorce you." With that said, Chen Guanglu stormed out of the room. The younger Han wife managed to get up, absent-mindedly wiped her face, and immediately left to get her servants to harness the carriage and hurry back to Zhouhe County. Sitting in the mule-driven cart, she wound a thin hemp rope around her hand, thinking about the easiest way to kill the child. The best method would be strangulation. No blood would be spilled. Then she could discard the body anywhere and be done with it. No need even to dig a pit for burial. Such a small child, if left in the wild, would be quickly eaten by the wolves or wild dogs. It wouldn't draw any attention. With these thoughts, the younger Han wife calmed down and blamed her elder sister once more in her heart. If it wasn't for her, she wouldn't have been cursed and beaten by her husband. What a useless woman. Ironically, she couldn't conceive a son, and merely wanted undue complications, which made her journey hundreds of miles in snow. She was not only tired but also had to spend money on bribery. She would never bother to deal with her again in the future. The mule-driven cart rushed and arrived at Zhouhe County finally. But when the younger Han wife arrived at her elder brother-in-law's house, the sister-in-law notified that the child had run out on her own and had not returned home for the entire night, and they had searched for her for a long time but in vain. The younger Han wife's head was throbbing with frustration, yet she dared not stay longer and immediately commanded the servants to drive the carriage back to Qinchuan County. It snowed only for one night, and then the sky was clear, but the temperature was surprisingly cold. Ing Bao had been staying at this house for several days, staying indoors every day without setting foot outside the yard except for using the latrine. The female owner of the house sent her some old cotton clothes to change into and had a maidservant help her with washing and combing her hair every day. On this day, Wu Daozi finally came to pick her up, bringing 2 servants and 2 mule-driven carts along. Each servant drove a cart. There was luggage, bedding, and book boxes tied to the back of the second cart. After bidding farewell to the household, Ing Bao left with Wu Daozi. She and Wu Daozi rode in the front cart together. The cart had soft cushions, and there were 2 thin blankets, each draped over a person's knees, blocking the cold wind coming through the cart curtains. Today Wu Daozi was not wearing his Taoist robe but a green straight robe made of cotton, which gave him the appearance of a scholar. Ing Bao's gaze passed over his neck, and she took out 2 boiled water chestnuts from her pocket. "Uncle Wu, these are for you to eat." She didn't explain where the water chestnuts came from, letting Wu Daozi fill in the blanks himself. Wu Daozi accepted the 2 water chestnuts, turning them over in his hand for a closer look. "Do they need to be peeled?" Ing Bao shook her head. they're clean and cooked, so you can eat them without peeling. Oh. Wu Daozi started eating at a leisurely pace, then glanced at the little kid and asked, "Do you have any relatives in Qinchuan County?" No, although Auntie Jiang Yunyang lived in the county, Yingbao had no idea where she lived. She decided to simply say no. The mule cart was shaking and moving slowly. It was estimated to be good enough if they could reach their destination by evening. "I'll take you back to the county first, and when we have time, we can visit Simon Town to check out the large gourd you mentioned." Yingbao, okay. The carriage had not traveled far on the street when they encountered a long procession performing the sacrificial dance, leaving them with no choice but to pull over and wait for the procession to pass. Yingbao quietly lifted the curtain of the carriage to watch. She saw hundreds of dancers draped in colorful silk, performing the sacrificial dance to the rhythm of drums. Most of them were bare-chested, showing off their robust arms and chest muscles. In the chilling wind, these people seemed not to be afraid of the cold. They danced and sang prayers in dialect, heading in the direction of the Taoist temple. Many people followed to watch the dance, making the crowd stretch out for 2 to 3 miles. The drums echoed, and flags fluttered, some flagpoles even having strings of white lanterns hanging from them. It was a shame that it was daytime, so the lanterns were not lit. If it was night, and the lanterns were each set alight to shine like stars in the sky, it would be truly beautiful. Wu Daozi also watched with interest, even tapping his legs to the rhythm of the drums. Yingbao calculated with her fingers, and realized that today was the 15th of October, also known as the Lower Yuan Festival in Taoism, when all Taoist temples would conduct rituals. No wonder she encountered Wu Daozi at the Taoist temple. He was a true believer in Taoism. It was only after the dance procession passed that the mule cart slowly began to move again. Yingbao continued peeking out the carriage window, observing the houses along the street. Many of them had flags erected, embroidered with words like heaven, earth, and water shrine, harmonize the wind and rain, and ward off disasters and blessings. Some households even set up a shrine at their doorways, with an assortment of cakes and fruits set on it, such as glutinous rice vegetable balls, red bean steamed buns, and fried tofu, for their own children to eat. Sometimes, they would also share some with the neighboring children who came to beg for food. Even after leaving the county, the mule cart could still see some farmers' houses with flag poles erected. However, most of these poles were adorned with animals' shapes made of rice straws and wheat stalks, like carps and sheep, to pray for bounty. Little children under the guidance of their family members were inserting burning incense sticks into the ground in the shape of Chinese characters. This was to worship the passing spirits, to appease those lost souls and ghosts, and to prevent them from clinging to the children. Yingbao had also been taught by her parents to insert incense sticks like this. While she was doing it, her parents would pray to the passing spirits to leave after enjoying the offerings and not to bother the children. The mule cart picked up speed upon entering the official road. On both sides of the official road were either farmland or wilderness, which weren't very interesting. Yingbao let down the carriage curtain, looking bored at the interior of the wagon. Suddenly, she became curious about the lump on Wu Daozi's neck. But she couldn't just say it directly. After thinking for a moment, she said to Wu Daozi, who was reading a book, "Uncle Wu, I have learned medical skills from the master at home. Do you want me to take your pulse?" Wu Daozi glanced at her but didn't respond. Picking at her fingernails, Yingbao thought for a while, then continued, "Uncle Wu, the master always praises my medical skills. Are you sure you don't want me to take your pulse?" Wu Daozi didn't even lift his eyelids, still ignoring her. Yingbao felt discouraged. But was she the kind of person who gave up easily? Of course not. After all, she was still a child. There was nothing wrong with being a bit thick-skinned. As long as Uncle Wu didn't kick her out of the carriage, it was all fine. Chapter 84, Chapter 84, Chapter 84, Little Divine Doctor. Chapter 84, Chapter 84, Little Divine Doctor. After a moment, Yingbao sneaked a peek at Wu Daozi. Seeing he didn't seem angry, she tentatively asked again, "Uncle Wu, are you really not going to try?" Wu Daozi didn't wait for her to finish before putting down his book and good-naturedly stretching out his wrist. "Then you go ahead and take my pulse." He estimated if he didn't let her take his pulse, this little girl could nag him the whole way without stopping. Yingbao blinked, almost thinking she had misheard. Wu Daozi was actually letting her take his pulse. Wasn't he a divine doctor? Why would he let a child take his pulse? But such a question could only be contemplated in her heart, she was not going to ask it out loud. Though pretending to be calm on the surface, Ing Bao thrusted out 3 fingers in a fake proficiency and took Wu Daozi's pulse. But she was still a bit nervous. After all, he was a future divine doctor. When he became famous as the divine doctor, she would hire a painter to capture this moment, with the caption, "On a certain day, month, and year, a 3-year-old child prodigy took the pulse of the divine doctor." Hey, she could make a name for herself just based on this story alone. Ing Bao carefully felt his pulse and said, "Uncle Wu, your pulse is smooth and slightly sticky, indicating a stagnation of liver energy, and the energy mechanism of the lung and stomach is not smooth. Are you often frustrated?" She pointed at Wu Daozi's neck and continued, "Subsequently, dampness accumulated to form a disease, and phlegm energy blockage occurs in the neck. As a result, you have a swelling in your neck, and the neck mass grows bigger." Wu Daozi nodded in approval. "Your diagnosis isn't bad." He rubbed his neck and mockingly asked, "So does young Dr. Ing Bao have a cure?" After pondering for a moment, Ing Bao took out a few boiled water chestnuts from her pocket and handed them over, saying earnestly, "This is a good medicine." Wu Daozi laughed heartily and took the water chestnuts gratefully. "Thank you for the medicine, young doctor." He just assumed it was a child's game and didn't take it seriously. Ing Bao saw him continuing to read his book, showing no intention to take the medicine, and impatiently urged, "Uncle Wu, why aren't you taking your medicine? Taking the medicine is how you get better." Wu Daozi looked at her and had no choice but to stuff a water chestnut into his mouth and started to crunch. Only after seeing him finish 3 of them did Ing Bao finally look away, satisfied. After that, they didn't speak much. Ing Bao even fell asleep. When she woke up, the mule cart had stopped in a courtyard. "Get off and stretch your legs." Wu Daozi lifted Ing Bao down from the mule cart and set her on the ground. A few soldiers with large post characters embroidered on their backs came over and respectfully asked, "Sir, will you be stopping here for a rest or lodging?" "Rest for a while. Bring us some food to eat, we'll leave once we're finished." Wu Daozi instructed with his hands behind his back, "Also, bring a brazier over." "Yes, sir. I'll go handle that right away." The postal soldier ran off quickly. Ing Bao tilted her head and looked at Wu Daozi, thinking to herself, "It turns out he's an officer. Not just anyone could rest in a postal station. This was a place controlled by the government office, and without any official rank, one wouldn't even be allowed to stand at the entrance." Ing Bao looked around and saw a latrine at the edge of the courtyard. She called to a postal soldier to take her there. Now she could bluff around a bit, playing a little fox borrowing the tiger's prestige. After using the latrine, the postal soldier brought hot water for her to wash her face and hands, then took her to eat. Of course, she was eating with Uncle Wu. The food was quite ordinary, just steamed buns, tofu, pickles, not even a single egg. Judging from this treatment, Wu Daozi's official rank wasn't very high. Food and warm water at the postal station were free for passing officers, but the quality of food was directly linked to an officer's rank. What rank you were determined what kind of food you got. This was a rule from the imperial court. If you weren't satisfied, you could pay extra for additional dishes. Ing Bao took a sip of the warm pickle soup, her eyes darting to Wu Daozi from time to time. She finally couldn't help but ask, "Uncle Wu, where do you serve as an officer?" Wu Daozi leisurely took bites of his steamed bun and pickles, saying, "You sure ask a load of questions, kiddo." Ing Bao curled her lip, took a large bite of her bun, and stuffed her mouth full. After finishing their meal and warming their feet a while, Wu Daozi instructed his servant to hitch the mule cart and get on the road again. A few hours into their journey, they came to a fork in the official road where they paused. The cart driver asked, "Master, which road should we take?" "It's getting late, let's head to the county town first," Wu Daozi instructed. "Yes, sir." The cart driver, who had already inquired about the direction to Qinchuan County while they were at a relay station, flicked the whip to spur the mules towards the county town. Before nightfall, the mule cart finally reached the town, and following Wu Daozi's instructions, the servants stopped at an inn. Though they had arrived back in Qinchuan County, Ing Bao remained on her guard. Before stepping out of the cart, she wrapped a thin blanket around her face, leaving only her big bright eyes to goggle at their surroundings. Wu Daozi was unfazed by Ing Bao's peculiar dress, while the 2 servants couldn't help but laugh. The behaviors of this pint-sized kid were hilarious and sure enough to amuse people. Regardless of their laughter, Ing Bao knew that the husband of the little Han family was a subordinate in this county town, and there was a chance that they might cross paths. Though Chen Guanglu might not recognize her, he was surely privy to her appearance from his wife's mouth. Although Wu Daozi was an officer, he had brought along only 2 servants. Arriving on someone else's turf, they could easily be ambushed by an enemy if they were not cautious. Upon entering the inn, the innkeeper checked in the travelers. Realizing that one of them was an incoming officer, he quickly ran out from behind his counter, bowing and scraping as he led them to the room upstairs. He urged his helper to bring up hot water and a brazier as quickly as possible, then had his wife brew a big pot of ginger jujube tea sweetened with brown sugar to help the officer stave off the cold. Ing Bao also received special treatment. Not only was she given her own room, but she also enjoyed the warm hospitality of the inn. The innkeeper's wife personally carried in hot water for this young lady to wash her face and hands, smiling as she asked, "Little miss, why didn't your mother come along?" Taken aback by her question, Ing Bao answered briefly, "She's at home." "Oh, why would she say that?" the innkeeper's wife said with a sly smile, then whispered, "Did the officer not want to bring along someone to take care of him on this long journey?" The question was anything but respectful, but the innkeeper's wife thought this toddler wouldn't understand anything and, moreover, she had no maids or female servants around her. The woman assumed it would be easy to pump some information out of the little girl. But Ing Bao, who had grown up so quickly in her past and present lives, had both her parents from the village and had not been taught what was proper to listen to and what wasn't, so she did not catch the innuendo in the matron's question. Upon hearing the innkeeper's wife's comment, she was reminded of Wu Daozi's miserable, neglected old age. She seemed to never have heard him mention a wife or children, and considering he had only brought some gifts to present when assuming office, and the 2 servants hadn't mentioned anything about their master's wife or children, she wondered, could it be that Uncle Wu had never married? Ah, that might be possible. So she replied, "Uncle Wu hasn't assumed office yet. He'll handle such matters once everything is properly arranged." Overheard her earlier, the innkeeper had been respectfully addressing Wu Daozi as Mingfu, an officer. Who was Mingfu? Naturally, he had to be the magistrate of a county. Therefore, Wu Daozi was most likely going to assume the position of a county magistrate. That was wonderful news. As long as she maintained a good relationship with Uncle Wu, why would she have to fear Chen Guanglu? But Chen Guanglu was a big fish in their local pond, so she couldn't afford to be the innkeeper's wife was. Taken aback when she heard Ing Bao called the Mingfu Uncle Wu, but she quickly forced a smile and said, "So, it turns out you're the officer's niece." Ing Bao. All right, let her guess what she wanted. After all, she would be going home the next day anyway. The innkeeper's wife's smile became even more pleasant. She said to Ing Bao in a low voice, "The officer said you'll be staying at the inn for a couple of days. My niece isn't doing anything tomorrow, why not let her come over to keep you company?" Part 6 of the series ends here. Thank you for watching and listening. If you find it interesting, please give us a like, a comment and a subscription so that we have the motivation to make the next videos.